Hello, folks. Welcome to Scratch the Surface. I'm EJ Scott. Today, my guest is director, writer Peter Chelsom. Peter has written a ton of movies and directed a ton of movies, and he was kind enough to spend a couple hours with me in the kitchen talking about his career and his life. It's really interesting guy, and I will talk about what we talked about in just a second, but first, some plugs from myself. You could follow me on Twitter at EJ Scott and the podcast at EJ Podcast. Instagram EJ Scott1106. My website ejscott.com. I raise money for charities. You could see a list of the charities at crowdrise.com/7on7. That's the number 7 on the number 7. And there's a documentary called Running Blind on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon, digital copy that you can rent or buy for $2 or $3. It's about me running 12 marathons in 12 states in 2012, blindfolded. What? Why would I do such a thing? Well, I'll tell you. I am losing my eyesight to an eye disease called choroideremia. It is genetic, and a bunch of people in my family have it, including my brother and my 2 nephews, and my grandfather was blind from it as well. So I'm always trying to raise money and awareness for the disease and the cause, and so in 2012, that's what I did. I ran 12 marathons in 12 states, and raised a bunch of money, and was lucky enough to get a documentary made about it. And once again, called Running Blind, so go check that out. Yeah, I think that's about it. So, okay, great. So Peter Chelsom, he does not know me. I do not know him. Other than I'm familiar with his work. But I reached out to him, and he was kind enough to be like, sure, I'll do your podcast. So we talked about a lot of stuff. He's from England originally, so we talked about growing up in England. We talked about losing parents at a young age. We talked all his movies, pretty much. I think all of his movies. He did a movie called The Mighty, Hector and the Search for Happiness, Funny Bones, Hear My Song, Town and Country, Serendipity, the Space Between Us. What else? Probably Shall We Dance? The Hannah Montana movie. And he's got a couple really cool, interesting projects coming up that we talked about. But we talked about that movie, Town and Country. There was a lot of issues making that movie. It took a couple years to actually make it and finish it. We talk about some of what happened there, working with people like Warren Beatty, Garry Shandling, in other movies too. We talk about working with Gary Oldman, his friendship with Gary Oldman, his friendship with Anthony Hopkins, working with Richard Gere, Susan Sarandon, James Gandolfini, working with Simon Pegg, Jerry Lewis. He's worked with incredible people. Kate Beckinsale, John Cusack, Molly Shannon. Yeah, and Serendipity, the shots of the Twin Towers had to be removed because it was released just a couple months after 9/11. We talk about for Town and Country, there was footage, $1 million worth of footage that was stolen, and we talk about that and the remakes of all that stuff. It's crazy stuff. So we had a really good talk, and he's also married. He's on a second marriage, and he's got 3 sons. We talk about how he met his wife. He used to be an actor himself. We talk about his transition from acting into directing and writing. Lots of stuff. We cover a lot. We cover it all, I'd say. So that's about it. And there you go, folks. So I hope you will enjoy my talk right now. It's a long one, but a good one. From June 24th, 2017. This is my talk with writer-director Peter Chelsom. What were you going to say? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I was going to say, do you remember my film, Funny Bones?
Yes.
So it's a kind of bittersweet thing because it makes all those classic cult lists, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And is often on those lists. My favourite one is Best Neglected British Film of All Time.
That's pretty good.
I know, of which there were like 4. There was a Kubrick film and a Gavin Miller film and something else. But the bitter of the sweet is that, of course, it didn't get the distribution it deserved, and
sure.
It just, but it's finally been relaunched by Kino Lorber. Do you know that firm? So
no.
they kind of resurrect classics and cult classics. And,
okay.
So they're doing a Blu-ray, which is incredible, great. And I'm doing the director's commentary after 24 years.
Are you going to be able to remember?
23 years. I'm going through it at the moment. I'm going through it, and, I have a lot to say about it. But then with commentaries, I think there's going to be someone asking me questions through it, which I prefer. Because normally when you do them, you've just delivered the film, so the film's completely in your head, and I have a very anal memory for detail, So it's going to be fun. But it was like it's just this and that. That's my weekend, so it's kind of fun, really.
Well, you know what? I this past week I've watched almost all your films.
Oh, you have?
And but I couldn't find "Hear My Song."
Oh,
that's
really?
hard. That's a hard one to find.
You can get it.
You can buy it, but I was looking. I waited too long, and I was looking digitally. I assumed I could get it digitally.
It's so weird that you say that. Look, here's a text. It's just so weird how things come in. It's just so weird.
What are you looking up?
I'll show you something.
Okay.
This was this morning. From Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, wow.
And he says, I got your message. Yes, I received this. Is Hear My Song too old-fashioned for a musical? He wants to know.
Oh, crazy. Like a stage musical?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Crazy.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we always thought it might be.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
What an interesting story, too, Hear My Song. I was reading up on the story of it.
I take it we're rolling and we've started.
Yeah.
Good, I like that.
It's. I mean, usually
we've slid in. AJ.
Why not?
We've slid in.
Why
like
not,
it.
Peter?
Yeah, no worries. Whatever you like.
This is already the first 10 minutes of your Funny Bones commentary.
There you go.
Yeah, well, it's such an interesting story because this guy,
Joseph Locke,
excuse me.
Yeah.
John Locke's from Lost. Joseph Locke, who's a singer,
yes,
he disappeared, right? But it got replaced.
Yes,
because of tax stuff.
I made it, most of it up. The truth is,
oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too long. Do you like to get this into a limit, or I'll just talk and you can edit?
Go ahead.
So when I started, I made the first 3 films I made. The first one was a short film called Treacle, and it got a BAFTA nomination. It went to various festivals, especially New York, did very well, whatever. And it was a story about my hometown. And when I went there and made Treacle, I realized I had a lot more stories to tell. In fact, 2 other films to tell. So they've sometimes been shown as what they call the Blackpool Trilogy in a couple of festivals, which is very nice. Hear My Song is actually a Blackpool story.
Yep.
Funny Bones is a Blackpool story, and it's set predominantly in Blackpool.
Yep.
Hear My Song came out of Blackpool, but we set the British stuff in Liverpool because it suited, because there was an Irish community in Liverpool. But the story was and is that Joseph Locke was a very, very popular commercial tenor, kind of not Pavarotti, but could do that, but was just, I don't know, unabashedly commercial and hugely popular. And he used to go in my mother's shop in Blackpool, and I knew all about him.
Antique shop.
Well done, my God. And he was wanted for tax evasion, and he disappeared. He did disappear.
Yeah.
And he was worried about going back to Britain, so he was in Southern Ireland. And I took that, and then there was someone who pretended to be him called Mr. X, and his whole event, whole evening, the whole show was about is it or isn't it? There might be a raid any minute. They could arrest him any moment. Don't tell anyone, but he's it capitalized on that mystique, if you like.
Yeah.
This guy. And he looked and sounded quite a lot like Joseph Locke. We met him when we were doing all the research.
Really?
And then, then I'd written this treatment, and then Adrian Dunbar was my kind of closest friend, great actor. He and I co-wrote the screenplay, and he played the lead, and I directed. And it was a fantastic experience. But yeah, we upped all the ante. I mean, we embellished it a lot. We made him very much a wanted man, and he agrees to come back for this one last concert, and the police try to get him, and he escapes. but yeah, that's it.
But the true story is...
The true story is that he settled.
Yeah.
He settled with...
So he could come back.
Yes.
So he just figured stuff out with the law and his
With
taxes.
the inland revenue, as they call it. Yeah.
Why didn't he just pay?
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But somehow, I mean, he was a real rogue. But somehow on the note of rogue, I can't tell you how many illegitimate children of his showed up out of the woodwork saying, "I'm Joseph Locke's daughter."
Right.
They were all daughters somehow,
Right.
Whether it was true or not, but
Yeah.
And but he was a real character, and there was a royal premiere of that film with Princess Diana. And
Yeah.
the great Joseph Locke sang and whatever. That was my first feature, and it was an incredibly golden experience, and nothing in a way has ever really matched it. It was kind of extraordinary.
I heard Joseph Locke did not pay his bar tab that night. Is that true? That's what I heard. He just kind of skipped out. Is that true?
Who told you that?
No, I'm just joking.
Well done.
Princess Diana, did you get to meet her and say hi?
Yeah, I did.
What was that like?
It was extraordinary. It was one of her first public appearances. And it's very tense that evening. It was it was at the Marble Arch, the big cinema. The one that the director of Lawrence of Arabia,
You got me.
David Lean. It was the one that David Lean had restored and brought the screen forward. It's a beautiful, amazing cinema. And you're in the line, it's black tie, and there's Harvey and Bob Weinstein and me and Adie, and up comes Princess Diana, and she was nervous, very, very nervous. I think it was her first thing that she was doing on her own, and she was making a speech before the film, and she was just very nervous, and she confessed how nervous she was. But kind of fun and spunky, and just like said, she said to me, "Where did you film it?" And I said, "Well, it's set in Liverpool and Ireland, but we filmed most of it in Ireland and contrived the locations to be based out of Dublin." And I said, "Don't worry, you won't see the joins." And she said, "You want to bet?" It was kind of fun. She was fun. She absolutely loved the movie. Very interesting thing happened at the end when the lights went up. Adrian was sitting next to her because I had to go down to the front of the stage to say some words. And Adrian, my co-writer, was sitting next to her, and she turned to him, and it's a film about a man who had a double, really. And she turned to Adrian and said, "Oh, God, I wish I had a double." Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised she didn't. Just for paparazzi purposes or something, just to...
I think she was referring to the fact that she felt she was living someone else's life.
Yeah.
I think it, which is the impression you get now when you look back and you see her diaries and whatever, I think it was a comment about not necessarily wanting to play the role.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like that?
Every single day of my life. Every single day.
You want to skip town? Just disappear?
Every single day, isn't it funny?
Yeah, why do you think that sometimes? Or every day? Why do you think that?
Good question. Good question.
I bet your family would miss you.
No, well said. Because life's not easy, and and you just. I've never directed in television, and I ever, and I'm about to, I think, because Sonar have just offered on this series we've created from a book that's called The Mirror Thief, an extraordinary story. I'll tell you in a minute.
Yeah.
But when you're a filmmaker, especially in this era, it really is just a kind of peaks and trough life. And it used to be you couldn't make a film unless you were someone like Woody Allen and you were very heavily funded and autonomous. Every 2 years if you're lucky, but usually every 3 years. So you're always, you're always kind of climbing up a mountain or falling down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's become too difficult, and it's why I need to work in television to work more regularly. I do commercials, which I call director's gym, because it is. It's like working out and practicing directing. Otherwise, sometimes you go on a film set and you think, God, I haven't been on a film set for a year and a half.
And you get rusty. Right?
You get rusty and you panic, but then it all comes back. It absolutely comes back. It's never a problem. But you need to keep doing it, and it's like commercials, which I've always loved. Used to do loads when I started. They're like little microcosms of the big thing. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And even just in terms of behavior and how you leave people in your wake, it's like every commercial is like a rehearsal for how you really want it to be for the film. Like, it gives me so much pleasure when I come off a commercial or a film and people are just happy and they've had a good time and been treated well. And I always used to use commercials as a way of being I don't know, this sounds really corny, but just being a better person, and despite the pressures and the tensions, just taking time to listen to everyone and respect what they do. And, it's, because what else is there,
Yeah. Going back to the premiere of
Hear My Song.
Hear My Song.
Yes.
Joseph Locke. When did he sing after the song?
After the film.
Yeah.
He sang before the film.
He sang before. Okay.
I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was after. And it was a complete night. There was a show there which has a similar name here. Is it called This Is Your Life? When they do like This Is Your Life.
Yeah,
they give you the book, and they guests fly in from all over the world.
Right.
And the Joseph Locke This Is Your Life was immediately after the premiere, and a surprise to him. Oh. So it was a kind of big night.
Did you like the movie? He
did like the movie. I think he loved it, and suddenly he was making money again on royalties.
Yeah.
The Joseph Locke's greatest hits, most of which had been recorded between 1948 and 1958, was suddenly number 2 in the charts.
Okay, I hope he paid those taxes.
I hope he did. He probably didn't. But no, he was cool with it. I think he was disappointed that we didn't use his voice. Mm. But the truth was that his voice at that time just would have sounded too old and not quite what it was, and yet the original recordings would have sounded like recordings.
Who'd you use?
Used a guy called Vernon Midgley, who was a brilliant choice. And you can't. If Ned Beatty had started singing and miming to a Joseph Locke recording, which is not even in stereo, in mono, and you're in a 5-1 mix in a Dolby Theatre, it just sounds like you've put the record on.
Sure.
So you have to redo everything. So there was a guy called Vernon Midgley who was recommended to me by the composer John Oldman, with whom I did 3 films, and was perfect. Yeah.
The impersonator, the guy that said he was Joseph Locke.
Yes.
You said you talked to him. Did he tell you why he did that? Or what was his motivation and thought there?
God, he said a line that we then wrote into the screenplay, which one of the clients at the club says in Act 1 of the film, and he said something, people... Because we said, do you really believe you pull it off? And he says, you know what, people close their eyes, cast their minds back, and they see and they hear what they want to see and hear. And he felt that he was just giving people something they really wanted, regardless of it being a lie. And honestly, I don't know that he thought he was really convincing everyone. I mean, the tongue was in his cheek even. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think he knew what he was up to, and it was a kind of an in-joke.
Yeah.
But it satisfied anyone's longing for the real Joseph Locke, and that's all that mattered.
I wonder what happened to that guy afterwards. Like once Joseph came back, he's like, well, I gotta get a real job, I guess.
I think actually even for him, things went up.
Really?
Yeah.
He just started impersonating all sorts of people.
No, I don't think he did. I don't think he could. I think that was the only act he could do, but I think he did fine.
Okay, all right. I can't help but notice, but you have a bandage around your left hand?
Hand surgery. Nothing too
Hand surgery,
Nothing too
okay.
serious. It's called trigger finger. I had the same thing done on this hand about 8 years ago, and it just you kind of it locks, especially in the morning, and they just loosen the sheath that the tendon runs through, and then it's fine. But it's like everything is rehab and.
Is it from like typing or?
I don't know. I type a lot because I spend most of my life writing, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's actually you either are prone to this or not. The surgeon who's very, very good at Cedars-Sinai believes that it's hereditary, and indeed my brother, who's a couple of years older than me, has just got the same thing, and he doesn't type that much.
Okay.
So I think it's just
Okay, it's just one of those things, genetic things.
euphemism for getting old.
Well, you mentioned earlier you're from Blackpool.
Yes.
Born and raised?
Yeah, just outside Blackpool. I'm probably what they call posh northern. Yeah, until I was 19, I lived in Lytham St Anne's, which is like 10 minutes outside Blackpool. My parents died when I was quite young. My dad died when I was 13. My mum died when I was 20. But their business was in Blackpool, and my brother now actually runs that still after all these years and very successfully. And then I lived in London for 20 years, and then I've lived here for 21 years.
Oh, wow. Just one sibling?
Yes.
Just the one?
Yes.
I'm sorry about your parents. Where did they pass from? Is it okay?
No, it's fine. My father was, sadly, a medical error. If it was America and it was 2017, we could have sued for millions. But it wasn't like that in 1970. It was, he was on anticoagulants. He'd had a very mild coronary, but it was mild. He was coming off the anticoagulants, and somebody prescribed cortisone for a fluid on the back of his eye, which you should never do, cortisone and anticoagulants together. And he was quite fanatic about warning people. He wore that bracelet with the snake on it, the one that says I'm on medication.
Yeah, yeah.
And they admitted fault and everything, but he hemorrhaged internally. So the cause of his death was nothing to do with his heart. His heart was actually okay. So that was my dad. And then my mum had open heart surgery. She had a thing called mitral stenosis, which is not hereditary, thank God. And had valve replacement, and she died in 77, but at the age of 62. So she had me when she was 42, which in those days was late.
Yeah, my brother my mom had him at 42.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow, that's so sad. So she had this operation and died like years later, or
No,
during the operation?
she'd been getting worse, breathlessness and whatever. She had the open heart surgery. It was an artificial valve as opposed to a pig's valve, which they sometimes were using in that time, in 76, 77. But then she got an infection on the valve, and it never shifted, and she just kind of went down,
I'm sorry to hear
yeah.
that. Well, how was that for you as a kid, losing your dad at such a young age and growing up with just you and your brother and mom?
It sounds that it's the obvious thing to say, but it never leaves you, and it's part of your makeup, and it never changes. And I was saying to someone the other day, when things go wrong, when you hit bad times in your life, those childhood events, they all come out of the woodwork. It's like all the demons say, we're having a reunion, be there at Peter's house. Do you know what I mean? It's like those, it's weird for me because, I'll still have, it's like my wife, yes, admittedly she's 14 years younger than me, but her grandmother died a couple of years ago at the age of 98 or something. The idea that someone still has a grandmother, let alone who's just died, so for me, when people lose their mother, which is happening to a lot of my friends because of it, I think to myself, God, I lost my mum, 40 years ago. But it never leaves you. It doesn't. You can therapy it. You can do everything with it, but which only puts it in a different perspective. But I think it's the one wound that never really heals. I'm sorry to sound.
No.
For anyone who's out there listening who's lost their parents,
you're never gonna get happy again.
You are. Did you ever see the film Hector and the Search for Happiness?
I did.
Well, so you know that film is about the fact you have to embrace all of it. So I suppose but it's just that thing, you know. It is. It's.
Well, I was going to ask you, you know, in watching all your or most of your films this week, I noticed that a lot of the characters in your movies, or at least the main ones, are looking for something. They're looking for happiness, or so they're not satisfied in their life,
right,
or something.
Let me think. Let me think. I hear my song. Yes, I mean, you're right. There is an underlying theme, isn't there? There definitely is. It's weird because I'm doing this commentary on tomorrow on Funny Bones, and I've had to start thinking about, you know, with a film like Funny Bones, I kind of look at it, and it was the most, you know, the story behind that was that I was given complete artistic freedom. It was the most liberated I've ever been, and it was Jeffrey Katzenberg's baby, and sadly he left just before its release, so it got a bad distribution. But I look, you know, I think what happens with a film like Funny Bones is I know more about that film now than I did when I made it. In other words, there's so many things been written about that film that are like there's been a thesis here and there about it. When I read stuff and I go, really, is that what I was doing? Or, yeah. But they're probably right, because there were things that I can now articulate looking back that were part of whatever my madness was at that time. Do you know what I mean? And I look at it and I think, what the fuck was I smoking? Because it is it's very liberated as a form.
Yeah.
It has a structure,
really
but it's very, very, it freewheels in I think, a nice way.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to categorize. There's a British film critic, well known, called Mark Cousins, who all I need to do is play his presentation of the film on. You can find it on YouTube. He had a TV show. As long as I play that once a day, I'll be happy, because his love for that film is extraordinary. But one of the things he says about it is that it was uncategorizable. Anyway, let's get to your point, which is about. You said that the films are all linked by, let me put it in a different way, the central character or characters always on a quest for something over the horizon.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
Right. Happiness is a kind of is almost too general a term. I'm not being disrespectful to you. I'm just saying that. No, I mean I'm trying to be more specific, because you've got me thinking.
That's great.
I think. So my point is that I was looking at Funny Bones and thinking, well, what are the themes? And now that film is, you know, you've got your two half brothers. You've got Oliver Platt, and you've got Lee Evans, right? And they turn out to be half brothers. And what that film is really about, and always was, way before I finished writing it, even, you know, or started writing it, was a polarity that I believe exists in all of us that we struggle with and we have to keep in check and in balance, which is the personal manager within all of us versus the wild beast within all of us. So what that means in that particular scenario, in that film, you have Oliver Platt, who's moneyed, privileged, cosseted, and overly analytical. And then on the other hand, you have Jack Parker, played by Lee Evans, who is without education, abused, and wild and dangerous and impulsive and impetuous, to the point where murdering someone in the circus ring, laughter and applause only fuels the killer in him. Dark stuff. Yeah. But it portrays the two opposites, that polarity of humanity, if you like. And I believe, and I am always aware of it in my life, because I'm someone who, you know, who's ever listening to this, they're thinking, oh, you know, posh Brit, educated, whatever. So yes, I have on the one hand this capacity to can be really organized and responsible. And if you're directing a movie, say, as big as the last one, The Space Between Us, in a sense, you're a general in charge of an army, and you're incredibly together and organized. And I have all that, but on the other hand, I'm really, really, really silly, really stupid, and very, very free in my thoughts. And do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you know, my mother used to say, you have a very strange imagination, and I do, and I just love stupidity and silliness, and sometimes I can be irresponsible in that way, and very visceral as opposed to cerebral, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's what that film is about. So let's answer your question. The other theme I realized was the theme of nostalgia. Because people on a quest for something, I think there's good nostalgia and bad nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
I think good nostalgia is the advantage of happy memories. I think memories can really nourish you. I think memories can take you all the way to the finishing line. I think it's great. You know, I think memories are great. I think nostalgia, the bad nostalgia, is a black hole, and I think it comes from. This is true of definitely Tommy Fawkes, Oliver Platt's character in Funny Bones. Definitely true of Simon Pegg's character in Hector, is that they've essentially repainted and rewritten the past to suit. It's through a nostalgic haze. It's not really the truth. And that kind of nostalgia, that it was better then, just because it was then, really is like a malaise. It's like a disease that comes from just quite simply not being entirely content in the now and in the present.
Yeah.
It's a longing for something else.
Yeah.
And I in revisiting Funny Bones, which I've had to do because I'm being asked to do the Blu-ray commentary tomorrow, I realize how much nostalgia, and actually, Oliver Platt says, and the sun shone every day, didn't it? We were happy, right? Because he was brought in the family that told most of the lie, because they denied the fact that Jerry Lewis's character had left behind a bastard son and whatever, and he'd had an affair with his best friend's wife and all that. You know, so yeah, and then, yeah, I suppose, and Richard Gere's character, it is...
And I was going to say John Cusack's character,
Yeah, very
in
good.
Serendipity,
Yeah.
you know, looking back and Kate Beckinsale, but he's got this beautiful, amazing fiance but he can't stop thinking about Kate Beckinsale and like this fantasy of what he imagines that might be like.
Yeah. No, that's true. Adrian Dunbar, my friend, co-writer on Hear My Song, who's still, you know, I consider him my best friend, he always says Peter Chelsom does longing very well. Yeah, you're right. John Cusack. I suppose what John Cusack and Richard Gere, both those characters, have in common is that despite appearances, on paper in other words, they should be completely content.
Yeah.
But there's a dissatisfaction, there is an unease, and it is, and by the way, this is nothing new, this is classic character form and hero's journey, isn't it?
Yeah, and
it's always about being true to yourself and answering a call.
Yeah.
It's a call to arms, you know, it's...
They need Simon Pegg to be their shrink.
They need Simon Pegg to be their shrink. Yes. When did you see Hector?
Just yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yesterday.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, of course. I enjoyed it very much, and
people do when they get to see it. Have you seen if you look at the reviews on any site like iTunes and Netflix, it's always 4.7 out of 5, 4.6 out of 5. You know, it got a bad deal. But I'm proud of it. It's one of the films I'm really proud of.
Has that happened a bunch where you got a bad deal? You mentioned that a couple of times where like a distribution wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a problem with... I had lunch the other day. I'm going to drop a name. I had lunch the other day with Bret Ratner.
Oh, yeah.
Who I like, and we get on very well. People would think that might be an unlikely friendship, but...
The Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack. I see you order from Blue Apron.
Yes,
Who does the cooking?
My girlfriend, mostly.
Isn't it great?
It is. Do you do it too?
Yeah, and I shared one of the meals with my son the other day. Just the...
What did you have?
I don't know what it was, but just the process of cooking together. It's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, that's nice. Especially if you have like a kid or something. It's like something to do together.
Totally.
Then you have a nice, healthy, portioned meal.
I think they're amazing.
Yeah, they're great.
We've just given them a plug, haven't we? Blue Apron.
Congratulations.
That's okay, Blue Apron.
You'll make a commercial for them.
I hope so. Where was I?
Bret Ratner.
Yeah, you know, because Bret did an article in the UK recently for the Guardian newspaper, and he was talking about how Rotten Tomatoes is destroying the British film industry.
Oh, interesting. Why just...
Sorry, not the British film industry,
Oh.
the film industry. He happened to have been in Britain when he said it.
Okay.
And there are a lot of us, and I go to this feature directors dinner at the DGA every year. Because there aren't many of us who, on a regular basis, make films.
Yeah.
I think to qualify, you have to have made a film in the last 2 or 3 years. So I count myself lucky to be always asked. But I go because I love to hear other directors' really, really bad luck stories. It makes me feel really good,
Right.
especially when they're much more famous than me.
That's got to feel good.
It does, because
then
no,
you're
but
not
it's
alone.
true. People who you think could make movies so easily can't. It's
Yeah.
and it's become harder. And I think that what a lot of us feel, first of all, that when there is so much discrepancy, and this happened on the last film more than anything, The Space Between Us, which is a really nice family movie. Audiences loved it. The cinema score, which you have to acknowledge is what it's all about. Who else do we make movies for other than audiences? Was A-, which is very good for a film like that. And that film as well. You go on iTunes and it's 4.5 out of 5, whatever, that's the average. So you've got that on the one hand, but the problem with the Rotten Tomatoes score is that when it's, I think 19% is what it was for Space Between Us, when there is that much discrepancy between the cinema score and the critics score on Rotten Tomatoes, it tells you two things. It tells you that the critics are not representing their readership. I'm sorry, but that is a statistical case to say, guys, you are not representing your readership. You are depriving, clearly, a lot of people from an experience, an evening in the cinema with their family, particularly if it's a family film, and how many family films can we all go and share, and, that they would have otherwise loved. And what, I'm not going to name names, but there's a couple of really very established critics. I'm thinking of two in mind who you'd know very well, who really liked The Space Between Us.
Siskel and Ebert. I'm just joking.
Who were saying, don't get me started on critics today.
Yeah. And
it is a kind of a lynch mob mentality that kicks in. I think they have preconceptions. The fact that Space Between Us had 3 postponed release dates, so they go, oh, problem film, they're obviously recutting it. None of which was true, but they jump on that, and it's like it catches a disease that it can't shed. And it is a pylon that happens, and it happens with quite a few films. And even I hear that the King Arthur film that got killed on Rotten Tomatoes, I hear it's quite good. I hear it's, and audiences think it's quite good. I think that got an A- cinema score. And I think it's honestly, and then from what I understand, and I hear that a lot of the critics that are on the approved list, that can be termed critics on Rotten Tomatoes, they've gone on to other jobs. They're just still on it's not their main job. And then some of them are on the list because of the reach, because their blog has a lot of reach.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily say that they're lifetime devoted professional critics in the sense that, and what Bret Ratner was saying in his article was, in the old days, film criticism really seemed like an art unto itself, and it had influences, and it was thought-provoking, and it was interesting. So if someone writes a review that says, at the critic's review, the critic on my left fell asleep 10 minutes in, and I spent an hour and 50 minutes envying him. What good does that do? Yeah. Other than make you a troll? Yeah. It's not helping. And I think so. You will hear everyone say this these days. So there is no middle film anymore. There's a lot of truth in that. I'm generalizing.
Yeah. Because it's got to be either made super cheap or super expensive.
Kind of. We're generalizing, but yeah. And then the problem with that is that I've been on the Academy for a long time, so I vote every year, and I take the Oscar voting very seriously. But what's happened to the industry is that the less expensive films where people make them knowing that the way that the film will have its day is by virtue of it being an Oscar contender. There's almost a kind of a consciousness about the fact, oh, we have an Oscar movie here. And they become not great films, but great Oscar campaigns. And they become what I call very Oscar-ly. And it pisses me off. Mm-hmm. And they check the requisite Oscar boxes. And I won't tell you what those are because, I might... you know what I'm saying. It's just it. So when I see a film like
it's got a certain star in it. It's got a certain theme to it. It's got stuff like that.
Political, or it's making a political comment, or racial comment, right. Or it's a cause, or it's a historical hero. All those things that and if the person, and then throw in a disability, and you probably, and then it's like, and then make it, sprinkle it with Holocaust, and you've got a guaranteed Oscar nomination. Right. I mean, I'm joking, but there's kind of something in it.
Sure.
But so when I see a film like, what was the one with Chris Pine last year, The Bank Robbers? Hell or High Water.
Yeah, thank you.
I saw that twice in the cinema.
Yeah, great movie.
And I voted for it. I'm not allowed to say, but I will. I voted for that as best movie.
Yeah.
And the reason I did was because I just sat there and just thought, this is just, by which I mean not just. I mean it's not shouting for Oscars. It's just a really, really, really well-made film.
Yeah, it's really good.
I mean, fuck, I just sat and it was like I could breathe again because I thought, Christ, thank God, you're coming up to Oscar campaign and this is really good filmmaking.
Yeah.
And that's changed, it's like in the old days, it's like I'm thinking, well, there was a year, I think it was 92 or something, where there was Clint Eastwood's The Unforgiven, and there was the Al Pacino movie, Scent of a Woman. Those films, particularly Unforgiven, there's nothing Oscar-ly about Unforgiven.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know. So that's a long answer to a question, but and I think we were talking about, have I had a bad deal? Yeah, and yeah, and what I would love critics to come to realize is that they're shooting themselves in the foot because they're really hurting an industry for which they essentially would be part of and work. And I also think if look. It's no surprise internet has not connected people, it's disconnected people. I firmly believe that. We're all more disconnected than we've ever been. I think if there were more relations between critics and filmmakers, I think if they were throwing stones out of the darkness into another darkness, which is basically trolling, if they weren't doing that as much and they could put a face and a name to the face, and you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This is not me saying, I know it's so easy to go, oh, sour grapes, sour grapes, sour grapes. It's not. If they understood our intentions and why we do what we do, I think they would not be as dismissive. I think that they would analyze the films differently and the filmmakers differently. Because right now, and also if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, and the problem is, and lots of directors feel the same way, the idea that it's an aggregate is wrong because some critics should mean more than others. I'm sorry, they should, Anyway, it's very destructive, and it's hurting the business,
And it's a weird thing for, like a critic to maybe just be having a bad day, see your movie, and take it out on your film. I've heard critics before regret a review that they've given a movie years later. They go, I rewatched it and it's really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or they take the time during the screening, and I know this from, a very good source, to catch up with texts and emails. Oh. I'm serious.
That's like the rest of it.
No. These screenings are not with audiences.
Yeah.
They don't. They're not representing their readership by virtue of the fact that, the audiences very often love the films more than they all I'm saying is that when there is that gulf and that difference between cinema score. So look, what's the solution? Bret Ratner phoned me up and said, a few people have written to me about that interview I did in Britain for The Guardian. He said, but yours was really passionate and really articulate. Come and have lunch. So I went to have lunch with him on the lot at Warner's. Because I had said, I think the solution here lies, and I actually got this idea from a critic who I know, Joel Amos, and to have cinema score released at the same time as critic score. What that means is that cinema score wouldn't be doing an exit poll on opening weekend. They would actually have to be funded to have test screenings, sample screenings, a week or two before the opening. The studios should fund that, to be honest.
Okay.
And then the public would be able to look at, because the problem is any app you've got, up comes Rotten Tomatoes. Mm-hmm. And the general public like to get wise to that and go, Rotten Tomatoes didn't do very well, whatever. It's become a kind of esoteric little bit of knowledge, But if you, on every single app you went to buy a cinema ticket on, it said cinema score, let's say A-, Rotten Tomatoes, 17%.
Right.
It would affect your decision.
Yeah.
And it would diminish the power of the critics, and critics would be less complacent. I really do believe this. Because why would they want to be at war with their audiences? They would actually have to understand. They'd have to respect the audience's tastes a little more.
Yeah.
And know that, sorry, it's not about them.
Yeah.
It's about the film, and it's about the audiences.
Is there a film of yours that you're most proud of that didn't do as well as you would have hoped?
There's about 6 of them. There are two really. One would be Funny Bones because, look, Hear My Song was 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for many years. Then somebody found a bad review somewhere, so I think it's like 93%. And I know that Funny Bones is favourable, but Funny Bones, there was a Newsweek article during the Oscar season of Funny Bones saying the Newsweek film editor person said these would be my 5, and Funny Bones was one of them. And lots of people have said, what happened? So I feel, and especially because it stood the test of time, and especially because it still comes up as a lot of people's one of their favourite films, if not their favourite film.
Yeah.
And everybody says the same thing, and it's why Kino Lorber are relaunching it now. The guy who runs it, great guy, wrote to me and said, it's been one of my favourite films for as long as I can remember. I'm proud to bring it to light. Yeah. And I think it's because there's nothing like it. Robin Williams phoned me up at home.
Wow. And
it was the weirdest conversation because I thought it was Robin, the pool guy, to the house I was renting. and it was a classic, it's a classic comedy sketch. And I suddenly at one point went, oh, fuck. Robin Williams. He went, yes. And I said, I'm so sorry. Why are you calling me? He said, I'm calling you to tell you Funny Bones is the best film about comedy ever made.
Did you, before you knew it was him, were you like, are you coming on Tuesday? Because there's leaves.
Yeah. I said, Robin, everything's fine. The temperature's great. The filters, I do the filters myself.
That's funny.
So it was a really funny conversation. But no, I think that's the one of all of them that I wish, but thank God.
Well, that's an incredible compliment from
Robin,
from one of the greatest comedians.
Yeah,
of all
no,
time.
and it's like if you ask Billy Crystal, Billy Crystal offered me Analyze This after seeing Funny Bones, and I mistakenly turned it down. I've turned down, you wouldn't believe, I've made terrible mistakes.
Oh no!
The list is ridiculous. Because I've always been, I don't get out much, and I've always been very isolated. So I've never really understood what I'm turning down. But no. No, it's lovely. It's extraordinary. And then the other one is Hector, because Hector and the Search for Happiness, because again, the cast and I went around the world 1.5 times making it, and the work you put into a film and the sacrifices. I lost my house over it, and people don't know that.
What do you mean?
Well, if you're a film director these days, and unless you are huge doing blockbusters, you people think you earn a lot of money. You don't, because you get to just about to go into pre-production, and inevitably the studio or the people funding go, you've got to defer a third of your fees. Sorry, and the film's already gone back a year.
Yeah.
It's been postponed a year at least. So you're standing by a roulette table and you've put all your money on red and it hasn't come up. But if you put more on again, it might come up. So people don't realize that, because you're kind of committed to it for 3 years. You spread that and then you pay your debts and whatever. No, I'm saying
Then you lost your house.
Yeah, we had to sell our house. And
jeez.
we're living in a rental at the moment. But, Hector and the Search for Happiness... I think what saddens me, its very first public screening ever was at the Santa Barbara Film Festival Club. Not the festival, but the guy who runs it. Screened it on a Saturday morning in Santa Barbara or whatever. And it got this, totally, what's the word? Unanimous standing ovation, as soon as it finished. And they applauded. And I thought, wow, really? That's nice. And then Relativity, Robbie Brenner, who's been such a champion of mine, picked it up for Relativity for distribution in the US, and we did a very, very proper test of it. Because I believe you should. I think film testing is crucial. It's painful, but it's crucial. And it was this extraordinary experience, and it was such a mixed audience. I mean, it really was mixed. And they kept saying to me, "Who do you want?" I said, "Normal people, just normal fucking people. Really, truly, don't go elite. Don't do the art house. Just normal people at the ArcLight, Sherman Oaks, whatever." And it tested and scored 90%. And Relativity went, "Wow, this is great. We'll buy it." And they did, and we made a few changes, only a few. So that saddens me when. And critics were not great about it. It wasn't a good number. I think that we should never have opened it in the UK first, because I think the British, oh God, they're not very generous when someone like Simon Pegg steps out of his pigeonhole, I suppose. I think the fact that they were led to believe it was a romantic comedy by the marketing there, which I thought was a big mistake.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it's Simon Pegg trying to be serious, when in fact it's Simon Pegg being amazing. I mean, Anthony Hopkins saw Hector, and he's a very, very old friend of mine, and he wrote me this extraordinary 2 emails about Hector, but a lot about Simon Pegg, and asked me to pass it on to Simon. It's an extraordinary performance. Christopher Plummer, Rosamund Pike, Toni Collette, Jean Reno, Stellan Skarsgård, all of them. They're superb in that movie.
Yeah.
So it really hurts, It's like 3 years of your life, and then it dies,
Yeah.
It's difficult.
You started out as an actor.
I did.
Have you thought about going back into that field? Once in a while, you'll put yourself in a movie, like you put yourself, or at least you did a voice in Space Between Us, right, or something?
I think I did 3 voices.
Three voices.
Yeah, the robot and something else.
You have a good voice.
Yeah. Thank you. I used to. No, I had a very boringly respectable career as an actor. I mean, it really was. I was really blessed to have trained for 3 years at the Central School, which was in its day, at that time, it was the best. It was incredible. 2 years with the Royal Shakespeare Company, the Royal National Theatre, the Royal Court Theatre, all before my 30th birthday. And it was going fine. And the very last thing I did in the theatre was playing the opposite lead with Anthony Hopkins at the Royal National Theatre in Pravda. Yes.
Wow.
And...
That's how you know each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
1986. And I just stopped completely. Actually, I did one thing after that, and it was one of those BBC masterpiece theatre things. It was a Molière, and it was with Nigel Hawthorne, who was the actor who played the Madness of King George. That film,
yeah.
right? Nigel was lovely, and to he articulated it actually for me. So there I was, this actor with, you know, this incredible training and this background and all this experience. And one day when we were doing Molière's The Miser, Nigel Hawthorne said to me, you know, you really should direct. And I said, oh, thanks a fucking bunch. You know, thanks a bunch. Great, fabulous. You know, it's like the last thing you want to hear.
You should try cooking.
You should try cooking, yes. Have you ever thought of being an accountant? And he said, no, don't misunderstand me. He said, you're a very good actor, he said, but you have an overly developed third eye. And it was a big epiphany, you know. It was extraordinary. Just the fact that he said it to me, and I went, oh God! I went, you're right.
Why did you say like it's bad?
Because once it's overly developed, you can't lose yourself as an actor. In other words, he said you have an overly developed third eye, and then he said something. He said, because between you and me, our director's not very good, is he? And I said, he's all right. And he said, no, but he said I can see you thinking, I can see that you probably might even do better, you know, whatever. And I said, oh, I don't know. But what he was saying was that I was becoming too self-conscious. If I look at that, and I could, if I really tried, find that on YouTube, I see an actor, I see all the cogs turning. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I see the work. It's a demonstration of very good work. But I don't know that it's not what acting should be.
Okay.
And I stopped very abrupt. I was embarrassed by my own acting. And I was actually, I suppose, embarrassed to be an actor because I couldn't, you know, I just found the whole thing embarrassing. Now, I will quickly add to that here's the good news. I have this incredible ragbag of ways of working with actors, and I am so passionate about the craft of acting, and I love watching actors. I get very moved by their courage, and I understand them hugely. I mean, I really do. And I'm not a purist in terms of how I will work with them. So, example, just having worked with Gary Oldman, who I've known forever, because we have very similar backgrounds, you know, in terms of Royal Court Theatre and all that, Royal National Theatre and Royal Shakespeare Company, all that, training, London, all that. But there's a shorthand that happens that's really, really nice, where on the one hand, you know, I can direct Gary and we can talk, and then on the other hand, we're very inappropriate about it and very, very just kind of subversive and disrespectful and rude and disgusting, and how British can be. You know, we have a weird sense of humour, but in other words, we play.
Sure.
It doesn't mean we don't focus. It doesn't mean we don't work hard, but we can get that shorthand very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly.
Especially two guys that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's great. I love it. Now, on the other hand, so I'm not a purist in terms of how I'll work with actors. I'll use anything because it is all a game. It is all manipulation. But it has to ring true. So lately, in the last kind of few years, decade, whatever, I've actually come to love directing less. Not the job of directing, but I've come to love not directing actors and letting them
Trusting
alone
them
more.
Okay.
Yes, and I think creating the environment. Of course, I keep an eye on it. Of course, I do, and I'll tweak it. And sometimes it can't be that way. Sometimes I have to do a lot of work for the actor because they're not the kind of actor who maybe knows how to work, be it because they're not trained or they're very young or whatever. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. If it takes Marilyn Monroe 43 takes to say one line and some like it hot, it doesn't matter because the one take that worked was phenomenal and there was a magic, you know.
Yeah.
It's film, it's not theatre. So the weird thing is, and this came out of, this is my roots and this is my core belief, and I can't always apply it, but I was going through Funny Bones again, you know, by virtue of doing the commentary tomorrow and crapping myself and thinking, what am I going to say, you know? And I realized there was a quote that affected me very deeply by the French filmmaker Robert Bresson, who said about actors, and he worked with a lot of non-professional actors and a lot of complete non-actors, which I did and still do. and like to do, and I did in Funny Bones more than any other film I've ever made. The crew used to call the film The Mad, Sad, Fat World of Peter Chelsom, because no one could get insured. They were all dying or Alzheimer's. It was insane, you know.
The actors?
There were there was one lead actor, George Carl, who's a very well-known physical comedian who had Alzheimer's during the making of that film, and I had to work my way around that. Yeah.
Was that one of the Parker brothers?
Yeah, well done. Yeah, the older guy. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Because I was going to ask you about those guys. Because there's a part of the movie where they're doing a show.
Yeah.
And it's edited to show different parts of this show.
Compressed.
Did they compressed?
Yeah.
Did they do an entire show?
Yes.
So these guys are old school.
We had a shape to that
vaudeville
act. Yes. I mean, I knew I look, by virtue of having somebody watching, I know I can always compress something.
Yeah.
By cutting away.
Yeah.
But no. They absolutely were doing something that was an act unto itself and was working. Had we put it in the theatre, it was working.
Yeah.
Yes. But my point about casting was
sorry.
was that Robert Bresson said what matters, and he's talking about actors, is not what they show me, but what they hide from me. And above all, what they do not suspect is in them. And it blew my mind when I read that, because it justified a feeling, a hunch that I'd always had, which is that on film, nothing matters more than the inescapable quality of what I call the still photograph of that person. So those Parker brothers, when you say what they do not suspect is in them, I would add to that, and what you dare not tell them in your most honest of moments. In other words, there's no way I would say to them, I'm casting you because you both have really depressed, rubbery faces such that whatever you do, you're sad. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that is film casting at its best, where you cast people for their innate quality. And I tend to do that all the time. So it's like with Simon Pegg, we're in Shanghai, and we got into this routine where we do take one, and Simon would say, are we going again? And I would say yes. And he would say, any notes? And I would say yes. I have 3 notes. They are more Simon, and more Simon. And what I mean by that is, don't listen to me, buddy. You're in a really good place. You know what you're doing. Just play. It's fine. Just don't analyze it. Just leap at it and see what happens.
Did he like that?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Of course. Because by then he was in the right zone, and he knew that the film didn't have a house style, what tends to happen with me sometimes. And actually it was true of Eugene Levy on Serendipity. Is that they come onto the film, and because I made Funny Bones and I seem to be the person who likes comedy and everything, there's a slight comic vein in rehearsal that I don't like. I don't like signalling comedy, you know what I mean? It's like I hate comedy score. I've always hated comedy score. I had to have some comedy score a while ago in something, and I hated it. But
comedy score, you mean like music?
Music,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, when the composer's giving you a kind of smile under the scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just
okay, I get you. Because there's a lot of comedy in your films. There's like, especially physical stuff. There's a lot.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But they're not. If they're underscored, it's by a song.
Yeah.
So, and the song is giving it a different perspective, sometimes the opposite perspective. But anyway, so actors, they've often come on and there's been a kind of house style, if you like. And I go, no, guys, the house style is that there is no house style. But, so let's start very small, like in readings. I hate read-throughs, hate them. So, but I go, let's start really small and just talk and listen. Then grow from there, And then what I make a point of adding is that I love energy, and I love size. It doesn't mean you can't be big. It's just I don't signal the comedy. I'm simplifying it, and of course it's nothing new, but I just don't like signaling the comedy. So yeah, Eugene Levy, God love him. He came on Serendipity, and he was playing the guy at Bloomingdale's behind the counter, and it was interesting because we talked and we hadn't actually rehearsed much. And then he does take one of this scene with John Cusack where he's buying the tie, and I go, okay, just don't say anything, let's do take 2. And when I get to about take 4, and I go, Eugene, you can come down a bit, And then around about take 8, and I can see in John Cusack's eye that John is in agreement with me that it's not the style of the film. What can I say? Mm-hmm. And I take Eugene over to one side and I go, Eugene, I just have to say this, just so you know, there is no house style. It's a little comedic. You're so awesome. You don't need to, signal the comedy or whatever I said. And I tried to be as polite as I could. And he changed completely because he's Eugene Levy. The guy's brilliant.
He's been doing this a long time.
And he got it. He understood, because he's not just a comedian. He's a brilliant actor.
Yeah.
So he goes back and he does it. I go, great, we're fine. Then moments later, about 2 hours later, we're filming the scene where John Cusack has bought a blue velvet suit by way of spending a certain amount of money to
it's so like $3,000.
Yeah, to get so that Eugene Levy gets the commission,
Yeah.
And he goes, look, I look like a magician. And he goes, can I have a name now? And Eugene Levy goes, sorry, looked her up, it's disappeared, whatever. But you've made me buy the suit. And Eugene said, what do I do now? And I go, well, you've got to head back to your safe zone, which is the zone he's not allowed, behind the counter. You've made that very clear, that you can't come past this line, He goes, well, do I just run there? And I go, no. And I say, you hit him on the shoulder and you say, chase me, and you run. Right, like it's a game. Mm-hmm. You go, chase me and run. And John Cusack looked at me and he went, that is the stupidest note any director's ever given anyone. And I go, I know. And Eugene goes, Peter, on the one hand, you said we're not in that kind of comedy, but now you're asking me to hit him and say, chase me and run. I went, look, there are no rules. It's just that you seem to be in the right vein now, Eugene. You've convinced us. It's fine. It's an eccentric move. And then I said, look, here's the thing. We'll get the crew back. We'll rehearse it in front of them. If it gets a laugh with the crew, it's in the movie. If it doesn't, it's not in the movie. Eugene did it. The crew fell about laughing. I went, it's in the movie, guy. And if you look at the movie, it's in the movie. So there are no rules, and I'm very eccentric in those choices, but it's pure joy when I get someone like John Cusack and Eugene Levy, because they understand, they get it. And they like being in that vein, where, we're being funny, but we're not patting ourselves on the back with it,
Yeah. John Cusack's a hilarious guy, too. He did improv and back in Chicago.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And Jeremy Piven as well.
What I loved about the two of them together was, I'm a big one for pace. And Susanna David, my script supervisor, as we call them, continuity artist in Britain, she knows how much I love pace. And whenever John and Jeremy were together, she nudged me one day early on and said, do you know that we're getting about 2.5 pages per minute? And I went, yeah, because they're so fast and sharp.
Yeah.
And I love that. They're great. It's great.
They've worked together
half
a dozen movies or something.
It was superb.
So you've worked with a lot of great, legendary people, going back to Ned Beatty, to Jerry Lewis in Funny Bones. What was working with Jerry Lewis like? I mean, how do you direct Jerry Lewis?
So, Jerry Lewis, from my point of view, was a complete joy. He was lovely because
that's not what you hear,
No, I know
about him.
No,
so
I know, and
nice
I'm sure my producer Simon Fields had some issues where it would be about the trailer and the hotel room and the size of this and the size of that. I'm sure there were issues, but I got to be honest. He was terrific because he loved what the film was saying. He'd never actually heard of the phrase funny bones as a way of describing two different types of comedians, the funny bones comedian and the non-funny bones comedian. He loved the kind of metaphor of all that, because that's what the film's about.
Yeah.
He just loved that I knew so much. Comedy had been like a hobby of mine from the age of 8.
Oh,
he used to say to me, how do you know all this? And I used to say to him, Jerry, all my life I feel like I was brought up in a Jewish show business family, neither of which is true. I used to say. And he used to do this thing where he'd see me making a meal choice and goes, there you are Jewish. And then I was standing on Blackpool Beach with him, and the pier was over there, and there's a place called Butlins Hotel. And I said to him, Jerry, look at that place over there, Butlins. It's a holiday camp, like a hotel. like a Catskills, you know. And I said, my grandmother used to go there every year, and she won the Glamorous Grandmother competition 8 years in a row, and I've got all the cups to prove it. And he went, so you do come from a show business family. But
that counts.
But no, he was so directable. I mean, it was extraordinary. And because he just loved the statement the film was making, I think. It was really lovely. There's a scene where he goes into Oliver Platt's dressing room where it's like family members visiting someone before he goes to the gallows. You know, it's like Last Wish. And he goes in, and I'm shooting on 2 cameras. You can probably even remember the lens lengths, but it was 2 cameras. One was wide, and one he walked into a kind of 2-shot closer with he and Oliver, both their heads looking at themselves in the mirror. And I said, Jerry, own the room. Just do what you want. I'm not going to block this. I know you know it. Oliver stays there. I'm going to give you one note, the grapes. There's grapes. Take a grape, because it's like presumptuous. And I said, you know when you visit people in the hospital and you take them grapes, but you eat all their grapes and then leave and they've got no grapes. I said, it's just, it makes me laugh. I said, so just, that's the only note. He said, that's the only note you're going to give me. I said, yes. I said, because you know what you're doing. And I just remember sitting there on take 1, which is in the movie, take 1, and thinking, wow, you know, he's so extraordinary because he's funny and stupid and silly, but really there's depth in the acting, and he's very, of course, self-directing, you know, which I like. It was lovely. He was really good.
Were you raised? Did you watch Jerry Lewis movies and all that stuff?
Of course, yeah, of course.
Did your dad introduce you to comedy?
Yeah, I think he did. I mean,
were they funny, your parents?
Yes, definitely. Humor was a big thing, big part of our family culture. And you know, if you said, why are you a filmmaker? Well, it's not because I saw a Truffaut movie when I was 9. You know, it's not. It's probably more because I was an obsessive photographer and I saw comedians at the end of the piers in shows. So comedy was a big thing, and Blackpool was like a mecca for comedians, and it was like, you know, Atlantic City or the Catskills. I mean, it was a big. I was obsessed with comedy. I thought it was great. My dad, I mean, there are some turning point moments. I remember my dad taking me, just he and I, to see Monsieur Hulot's Holiday with Jacques Tati, the black and white French film, which is all physical comedy. And I remember just thinking it was magnificent, you know. Do you know the film I mean?
I don't.
Jacques Tati was just an amazing, he was kind of a French Chaplin.
Okay.
But later on.
Yeah.
Was making films up until the 70s, I think. And in fact, in Hector, there is an homage to Jacques Tati when Simon Pegg tests if the plate also is unbreakable. That's straight out of a Jacques Tati film called Mon Oncle. I don't do homages much, but that one I will admit to. But I you know, there are these moments, and it's like at the end of Funny Bones, there's this sway pole act where Lee Evans climbs this dangerous sway. It's terrifying. But it exists. And I saw it by the original guy who was called Fattini. I saw it when I was 9 at Tower Circus Blackpool, where we filmed that sequence. And I just, now I can look back and say, define the feeling that I had, which was I was just overcome with this feeling of wow, I think that's what they call art. Not comedy, but art. Now, it helped that the character was funny as well as acrobatic. So he was playing a drunk that needed to light a cigar, and the light was at the top of the lamppost, and he swayed. I mean, it was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant act that you probably won't ever find again. Yeah. You'll never find that act done as well as that. But I was overwhelmed by this sense of, I think that's what they call art. I mean, I wouldn't have written that then, and here's what I mean by that. It is. I think it's what W.C. Fields said. I think he said it, which is when comedy is right, it is art. It is beautiful. I can watch the bricks hit Oliver Hardy's head in the chimney sweep as much as I can, as many times as I can stare at a beautiful painting. Right. Because it is art when it's right. Yeah. You know,
and it feels good.
It feels fantastic. Yeah.
And you introduced us to Lee Evans in Funny Bones, who's brilliant. I know him best from Something About Mary, and he's just a great physical comedian.
Did you see Mouse Hunt or Mouse Trap? Mouse Hunt, the one with
maybe
I think it was a Disney film. It was directed by the guy who went on to do all the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Verbinski?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Verbinski.
And it starred, oh God, he's a big Broadway star. He was in The Producers.
Nathan Lane?
Yes, Nathan Lane
This
and
is
Nathan Lane and Lee Evans did a film together that if you like Lee, you should watch.
Mousetrap.
Mousetrap or Mouse Hunt.
Mouse Hunt. Excuse
It's
me.
really, really good.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Like, he does this cabaret act. I guess cabaret or vaudeville. I don't know what you'd call it. Either one? Both?
Variety, I suppose.
Variety, okay.
Do you mean he does it in his?
In the Funny Bones.
Oh yes, I see what you mean. Yes, yeah, variety act. Yeah,
Where,
cabaret. Yeah.
Yeah, where he's like lip syncing, but it's very physical. He's jumping up and
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
doing all sorts of
It
things.
was all created. I didn't change anything of the script once I cast him, except for that, because I needed to change the act and tailor it to him. So I worked on it and then gave it to him, and then he finessed it and finished it and made it his own.
Well, he certainly did, because
Crazy,
I
isn't
would
it?
have I would have sworn that was like how you found him, was him doing that act, and then you're like, hey,
Well-
you should do that for the movie.
I found him doing something similar.
Okay.
I mean, if you ever see a stand-up, and here's what you've got to remember about Lee, is that he is huge in Britain. He's actually retired a couple of years ago, and now is coming back, and I spoke to him yesterday. He and I are trying to get together a stage show for the West End. He filled only a few years ago Wembley Arena as a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
I don't know how many thousands of people that is.
And when he's doing stand-up, is it just jokes, or is he being physical?
very physical.
Okay, it is.
And the story of, Peter Flannery and I wrote Funny Bones. And yes, it was my personal story, but I couldn't have done it without Peter. He's a great writer. And then I wrote everything from the third draft on, because then I was going into production. But you get to the point where you realize you've written a part that's impossible to cast, because you've written a phenomenon. The film is about the fact you either have or don't have funny bones. So if you go to an actor and say,
Right,
you're going to play really funny,
Yeah,
you're going to act really funny,
It don't work.
it's irreligious, if you like,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the film. And it was daunting, because I thought, who the hell is going to play this part? And everyone kept saying, oh, you need to see Lee Evans, you need to see Lee Evans. And Simon Fields, our producer, and I went to see Lee in the West End, and the supporting act was not great that night. And we were waiting in the auditorium for the second act, which was going to be Lee doing his act. And he came on stage just to place a prop, and people were filing back into the audience. And someone went, oh, wait, Lee, shouted his name, and he just turned, and he just kind of did a little move, and he walked off stage, having just put the prop on a table. And I turned to Simon, my producer, and I went, we can leave now. He said, what do you mean? I said, we can leave now. We found Jack. He said, what are you saying? You don't want to stay? I said, no, we'll stay, but we found him. That's it.
Why?
Because in 1.8 seconds, it was so obvious that Lee was what I, in my wildest dreams, wanted.
No kidding.
No, it was incredible. I could tell. I mean, when I'm casting, I usually can. It's like if I'm doing cattle call casting, like a commercial, they walk in the room and I can usually tell within a second if that person's right or wrong, and then you go through the process of making them feel good. And I'm sometimes wrong, of course, but I cast very instinctively, and I just saw Lee, and it was about 1.8 seconds. So to go back to his act that he does in the film, yes, I helped him with it and structured it, but, and I had this idea that there was a boxing match and a relaxation exercise and this and that song and whatever, but I said to Lee, you have to take this and make it your own now. I can't impose this on you. Just fuck with it. Whatever you want. Just... So he went away and then finessed it to that.
How long did it take him?
A few weeks. He worked incredibly hard. He had a lot of physical training to do. Yeah. He actually got to the place where he could climb that lamppost like a monkey. If we had let him, he got halfway up and we had to stop. And then we had this rig that we created for how the top of that sway pole behaved. It was a very complicated rig, but Lee was extraordinary. I mean, I don't think I've ever. He and I know we want to reunite now, because we bring something out of each other. It's one of the most interesting relationships I've ever had, I think.
So would you direct him on stage?
Yes.
That's what you
Absolutely,
guys are going to do?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned commercials. I watched your commercials on your website.
Oh, wow.
And what's funny is your Match.com commercial.
Oh, yes?
I met my girlfriend on Match.com.
Oh, how funny.
Almost 10 years ago.
Oh, how funny.
But it's a great commercial because it takes place in a football game.
Oh, that one, yeah.
And the guy starts taking all of his clothes off
Yeah.
and basically streaks and runs on the field and runs around and all this stuff with a message to his girlfriend written on his body.
Forgive me.
Forgive me. And was that during a real football? Like, how much of that is guerrilla?
Thank you for thinking that.
filmmaking?
There is zero CG in that commercial.
But,
There's one tiling shot with the crowd. No.
Is it at a real football game?
Yeah, it's at the one in the it's the famous one here in LA. What's it called?
Oh, I have no idea.
Cloverleaf. No, it's not called that. What's it called?
What's
It's the
one?
football stadium.
Oh, Dodgers State.
No, that's even I know that's not football.
I don't
Anyway,
know.
whatever it
I
is,
don't
it's
know
the
sports.
and I got the guy. I got a real football team in, and the guy. I got the people in who'd done Any Given Sunday or whatever the film was. No, I got the real deal, and
But it wasn't a real game.
no,
Okay.
no, of course not.
Okay.
No,
looked
but the guy streaking is not photoshopped into or CG'd into
Right.
No, it's all in camera.
Yeah, I just thought it was during like a real football game.
No, well, thank you for saying that. That's the trick of it, and the trick of it is to film it like you just caught it,
Yeah.
as opposed to staged it. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite wobbly, and it's quite frenetic in its cutting, as if, oh my god, And to be honest, it's something I find myself doing more these days, which is I hate it when it's all going too well on the set. Because I do all my work, and I do end up saying, guys, let's go again. Somebody, please fuck it up. meaning, just do something different so that it throws everyone. Because you get to the place where you've got to make sure you sometimes catch it as opposed to stage it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
That's an extreme example of that camera style.
Okay.
But it works,
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Go more of the legends that you've worked with. You worked on Town and Country.
I knew that would come up. How can it not come up? Yeah.
With Warren Beatty, Goldie Hawn, Diane Keaton, Charlton Heston, which I love that he's trying to shoot somebody.
We did that. Yes.
And you mentioned earlier about working with people with like Alzheimer's and stuff. I mean, did he show signs on set? or
Charlton
anything?
Heston? No, he was fine.
Okay,
He
he's
just
fine.
had a hip replacement, so we had to look out for that. But no, he was fine.
Okay.
And really nice. Really?
Really?
Nice. Yeah.
Well, you gave him a
great.
gun. He was happy as shit.
Gave him a gun. He's very happy. Charlton Heston. I remember on day one with Charlton Heston, and I'd finished the scene. We were relighting, and he went to the edge of the set, and he sat in a chair reading a book. And I said, "Chuck, you can go back to the trailer." He went, "No." He said, "I don't do that." He said, "Because if I do that, then when you need me back here, I'm adding 20 minutes to your day." There and back, and probably more. He said, I'm here for you. I'm perfectly happy to sit here and not disappear.
Huh.
Incredible.
That's very nice.
Yeah, lovely. He was great.
That was nice. However, it still took like a couple of years to finish the movie.
More than that.
More than that.
Call sheets on films are, so you take a film like The Space Between Us. Big film. People go to Mars. People crash planes. You get a call sheet. If it's day 4 of filming, it says, top of the call sheet, it says day 4 of 39.
Right.
Because 39 days was all we were given on The Space Between Us, which no one can believe.
Yeah.
Because it's a big movie.
5 weeks.
Second unit, my producer and...
That's as long as Survivor. A season of Survivor is 39
it's crazy.
days.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I had a second unit director, John Albanus, who's a producer as well, who... I think he had 14. But anyway, the point is, day 4 of 39. My favourite call sheet on Town and Country is insane. It says day 132 of 60. It sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sums it up.
What happened? What happened? I mean, the stuff I read was...
There's a lot of stuff read. A lot of stuff written about it. I never agreed to any interviews, and I never defended myself because and actually nor did Warren. And I think that there are people who did interviews who shouldn't have done interviews. Warren and I never did interviews about it.
Yeah. Is that was agreed upon?
Kind of an unsaid agreement.
Okay.
And I see him, and he asked me to a screening of his film last year, and we got on really well. I think that here's how I look at it. Weirdly, it's a kind of a golden memory, and I kind of, as painful as it was, I kind of enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I think it's the film in which I wish the studio had actually intervened and meddled more. When do you ever say that?
Yeah, right.
But I think that they should have taken control. And I think to start a film without having finished the rewrites, which were massive, on the screenplay is a massive, massive mistake on any film. I just do. I know some films get made that way. I can't work that way. I don't like to work that way.
So the rewrites weren't finished when the shooting started?
Correct.
Okay.
And
that's
I think,
why
and Warren and I both felt that. We both realized that.
Why does that happen? Why doesn't it make sense to have like a finished screenplay? And
You'd be surprised.
yeah, I'm sure it would.
But you know, Warren, I went to see, what was it called? No Lifeguard on Duty? What was it called?
His movie
the
last
one
year?
last year, yeah.
Oh, I don't
Rules
remember.
don't apply.
Rules don't apply. Thank you. Now he hadn't done a movie in between those.
Since.
two. Yeah.
I know. And I got to say this, I went to see it, and I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
It had a real atmosphere to it. But when Warren was on screen, I just sat there beaming because he is such a star, and he's funny. He looked great.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt sad that he hadn't done more and more and more. Even now, he should be doing 3 films a year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much value to him. You can't stop watching him. He's just great.
Do you think he doesn't do that because he's just, he's older now, he's been there, done that?
He'll tell you himself he's very indecisive.
Oh, okay.
I was once at his house, and I said something about the walls, and he said they're blank because they've been blank for years because I just can't decide what to put on them.
That's interesting.
He's indecisive. But, there's a moment when Lily Collins is sitting there, and he's sitting opposite her. I can't remember it's either before they make love or after, but he says, "I'm going to leave the country and never come back." Do you remember that moment where he says, "I'm going to get out of the country"? Oh, so he says this line. He goes, "I'm going to give it all up and leave the country and never come back." And then he says it 5 times. I'm going to leave the country and I'm never going to come back, or different inflections or whatever. And I haven't asked the editor, but I know what Warren's like. He'll sometimes do that to give you 5 versions in the edit room. But I think what the editor decided, and probably Warren decided, was just to keep them all because it's so out there and eccentric and stupid. And I don't know. I just watched it. I was just very pleased for Warren. But it was a hard time. Yeah, it was a hard time.
Would you work with them again?
Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Definitely yes.
Well, how was it with the late great Garry Shandling?
Fantastic.
One of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, sad, isn't it?
So sad, and he had some great lines in Town and Country too.
No, he was great. Here's what was weird about Garry, was this mix of being very professional and feeling very novice somehow. In other words, I remember there's this... I'll never forget, there's a scene... Warren likes to go for a lot of takes anyway. You'll hear this about him, but there's no denying that, it was usually worth it, so whatever. But
yeah, you just said earlier about Marilyn Monroe.
Exactly. Exactly. Who cares?
Yeah.
And it's the 2 of them in the back of a taxi at the beginning of the film, and we're filming downtown in Los Angeles for New York, and it's a massive setup. And I've chopped a taxi in half and tented out the front so I can get 2 cameras simultaneously and get the lighting right and everything. Right. Otherwise, it's too cramped for us to get what we wanted. And we've created this traffic jam, and we've got steam and
Scott Adson
police.
is the cab driver, right? Scott Adson.
Well done. And the scene is a kind of start to the scene, and then the story is told in retrospect. It flashes back, as it were. And I think it took us 43 takes to get it, or certainly late 30s. But the one where we got it, the idea was that it was a two-shot. And then Warren goes into thinking about what Gary's just said. And it goes from a two-shot to a single very, very slowly. The camera starts to track in. And there was this take, and it was around take 34. And I'm going, yes, we've got it. They've got the lines. It's great and everything. And I signal to the grip to start the track. And before Garry Shandling leaves the frame, he looks off into the distance and goes, was that funny? I didn't think that was funny. Was that funny? Did anyone else think that wasn't funny? And even Warren puts his head in his hands, and I think, but it was just like, so it ruined the take. I couldn't use it, But
I would have used it. I would throw that.
But it was so just funny. No, he was just genius, funny, crazy funny.
I saw him. There's a theater around here called Largo.
Yeah,
it's on La Cienega, and Judd Apatow has shows there sometimes where he invites different people to perform.
Oh, yeah.
I go all the time, and I got to see Garry Shandling 3 times.
Oh, right. Recently?
A couple of years before his death.
Oh, wow.
And he would come out with Judd, and they would just talk, but Garry was so funny, but also very nervous and insecure.
Very.
And tight. Like
Terribly.
So tight, and his hands are tight, and he's breathing, and he's nervous, and he's... But even that's hilarious, even just him being nervous is even funnier than if he came out as confident.
It's very personal, his work. That's what was nice about it. Crazy time. I was quoting Warren the other day, and we were talking about a scene in a script, and I went, well, of the many things I learned from Warren used to say, what happens in this scene? And you describe it, and he goes, yeah, but what happens in this scene? And you go, well, it's this and that. And yeah, but what happens in this scene? And it's one of those things I've never forgotten, which was, you'd be amazed. In other words, if you're in the edit and you think it can go, then nothing happened in it, did it? Really? Actual furthering the plot. Do you know what I mean?
I see.
People think it's a scene that's important, and often it's not. Warren is a great master, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about so many things. Diane Keaton used to say to me, you will never ever have it this bad ever again in your career, as we got to day 130,
right.
Because it was a nightmare, yes. It was crazily and doomed. Now that had 17 postponed release dates. Critics, they just knew what they were going to say about it.
Yeah.
They were going to finally review a disaster.
Yeah, you think they were excited about it too?
They were excited about bringing it down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard.
Because it's not as bad as people think. I can't look at it. It's the one film I honestly think I haven't revisited in its entirety since I delivered it.
Yeah.
It's the only film of mine I haven't revisited in its entarity. Because
no director's commentary on a Blu-ray?
No, I don't even think it's a director's commentary. In fact, there isn't.
Yeah. Would you do one? 20 years.
Sure.
Between,
Sure,
what I mean?
but I don't.
You and Warren.
I don't want to do one.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Oh, me and Warren. No, because here's what. Going back to why some people should not have done interviews about that. I think it's unprofessional to gossip and bitch and.
Yeah.
I've been caught doing it myself actually, and I regret it.
Yeah.
I really, really do. I think you have to be careful.
Well, I think you've been very good. Very good here, if that means anything. Well, I did. Is it true that there was some lost footage?
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah, well done. You've really researched. There was a moment when we were filming in New York, and Simon, my producer, called me and said, "Peter, are you sitting down?" And I was in my room at the Essex Hotel, and I said, "Go on, what?" He said, some footage had been stolen. It was about $1 million to reshoot, and it was a day and a night, and we had to resurrect the whole day shoot and the night shoot, and a lot of it was helicopter. And I in those days used to like going up in the helicopter. Those because it's all directing. Do you know what I mean? I kind of like to have a finger in every pie. These days I don't need to so much, but but actually don't need to. I got a little scared on the reshoot because of the stolen footage, where we took off in the helicopter, and within a very short time, he's a very great pilot. We had to do a very sharp bank because we nearly hit a plane, and then we nearly hit a massive crane on the top of a skyscraper that hadn't got a light on it, and that was it for me. I don't tend to go up in helicopters as much.
Yeah. Well, that's all you need now, right? After everything else, you're just gonna crash into a crane. And
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Here's a weird thing I've just remembered.
Yeah.
I was filming in New York, and I realised the best shot was to look straight down and go through Fifth Avenue and the main streets, looking straight down. Never used that shot in Town and Country. Bought that footage for Serendipity and use it in Serendipity.
They saved you an extra trip in the helicopter.
Saved me a trip in the helicopter. But it was because I just thought, no, I remember doing some stuff on Town and Country, and I'm sure they'll give it to us, and they did, and it was just, and it looked great. What was the question?
I think you answered it.
Town and Country.
Well, how was Goldie? I love Goldie Hawn. How was she to work with?
She
seems like a joy. Every day is a joy.
Look, I think they're all great. They were all unhappy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was a really awful situation to put everyone in. I will just say that everyone was unhappy.
Okay.
And if we all meet, it's we're not at loggerheads. It's the Battered Wives Club. Like how the fuck did we ever get through that time of our lives? It was really difficult.
Yeah,
it was really difficult.
I'm sorry to hear that. Well, did you ever find out how the film got stolen? Like
it was a runner who had parked the car somewhere and left it, which you should never, ever, 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 ever do. Raw footage that hasn't been developed is worth as much as it takes to shoot the scene. So I think that, and I must say at the time they put a reward out for $60,000, and I remember saying, guys, you've got to make it $250,000.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? If you get it back, and
if you get it back, $1 million to shoot.
Yeah, I never understood why they only offered $60,000. Horrible.
So it's never been recovered.
No one ever saw it. No.
So what the hell is somebody going to do with all that? Like you take it, and now what do you do with it?
I don't know. They never held ransom. They never, I don't know what they'd do.
So originally, I read Gerard Depardieu was supposed to be Garry Shandling.
Where did you read that? That's true. Yeah, that's true. Garry Shandling. I had breakfast in Paris with Gerard Depardieu. He had been up all night. I loved him.
He's a charming guy.
God, I loved him.
It's a good breakfast.
And then he had that horrible motorbike accident. Then that was when Garry Shandling came in.
Oh, okay.
He was the original Garry Shandling part.
Yeah. Okay, so he couldn't do it because he got hurt.
That's right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I did not read that part. Well, that's too bad. And did you go, all right, well, let's get Garry. Was Garry your next?
Yeah, Warren was very keen on the idea of Garry.
Okay.
They were very, very close at that point. And I thought, yeah, great. Felt really good, yeah.
In Serendipity, I read that because 9/11 just happened.
Oh, yeah.
You had to digitally take out the towers from the movie.
Yeah, we did.
Because I guess the movie came out, it's a holiday movie, right? It came out a couple months afterwards.
I think it was the first big film premiere after 9/11 in New York. And it was a very interesting atmosphere. It was actually a very good night because I think people were glad of the chance just to go out and have distraction, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the film, I think they wanted to get rid of the Twin Towers in the movie in that one particular shot because I think it was too sensitive still, I suppose.
Sure.
I think, and the film was not about the Twin Towers.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Now I could argue, but it was about New York. Why not be truthful and celebrate the fact?
Well, where did you stand on it? Were you in agreement to take it out?
I'm usually very one side or the other. I can honestly say I was mixed about it. I really was mixed about it. I really was.
Would you put it back in now?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was, at that time, everything was sensitive. They were talking about taking the Trade Center out of everything. Everything that, like, Friends episode, like past Friends episode. Like they just talked about taking it. None of that stuff happened, but.
No, I think that a film comes out like Serendipity and its modern day section of it, in other words, Act 2 and 3, are present day. So if the Twin Towers are there, then it's not present day. I suppose I suppose that's the logical thinking.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Shall We Dance? Which I just finished watching.
Yeah.
Are you a dancer? Do you
I'm
dance?
a closet dancer.
That's a tight space to dance in. No ballroom dancing.
Here's what I mean by that. Is that Blackpool, was the mecca not only for comedians but for ballroom dancing, and then I was an actor and I had basic actors training, and I'm an okay dancer, but I really love watching dancing. I really love directing dancing. The film, I think, made over $170 million worldwide. It's probably my biggest box office movie. To me, it's the most normal movie of my movies. And it's okay but it feels a little, I hate to use the word, I don't want to be disrespectful, and I mean this in a certain way, it feels a little middle-aged to me.
Okay. Well, there's middle-aged people in it. Maybe that was that way.
I don't mean that. It
dancing.
feels. It just feels. But the way it's made, it feels a little. It's great. It's and people love it. I mean, it like I say, it's my most normal film, and I'm stranger than that, I suppose.
Okay.
I think that's what it is.
Do you want to make stranger films? Do you want to make
Not
stranger
perversely, not for
Terry
the sake
Gilliam
of not for the sake of being strange. I mean, I've tried to make there's so many films and scripts I've written that never got made that were probably too strange. Look, I mean, it's weird because in Hollywood you get put into categories. I suppose for a while I was romantic comedy, whatever. But if I told you about this 8-hour TV series that we're about to do, that Sonar, who made Taboo, want, and we're about to start writing the pilot. Cool. It's a book called The Mirror Thief, and not only is it not a romantic comedy, I think there's no romance and no comedy. There isn't a laugh in it. It's incredibly dark, and it is very strange. Look, I think tastes have changed. I don't think you can have a classical romantic comedy anymore. I think they have to be disgusting. And I'm not saying that critically, actually. I think they have to be audacious and outrageous and disgusting to work. I have a problem where a film that is a kind of romantic comedy now goes through all the kind of men behaving badly, out there, disgusting stuff, and it's really, really, really funny. And then you try to kind of tie it all up with the romantic comedy making up scenes, the making up, and you just have to go, no, why? Just stay cynical. Don't try and tie it up like that. It's I don't know, not stay cynical. It doesn't mean you can't have a happy ending, but I don't think you can do a romantic comedy now in the old classic sense of the. I don't think you can. I think they ran out of steam. Yeah,
I think you got to do something more to it, like La La Land or something like that. And
yeah, that was good. Yes, I suppose so. Things have changed. Tastes have got darker. I think The Mirror Thief, it's set in Venice, Italy in 1592, Venice Beach, California 1958, and the Venetian Casino and Resort, Las Vegas 2003. And it starts with a brutal crime scene that no one can solve, and it takes 8 hours through 3 time periods and 3 locations and 2 continents to solve.
Jeez.
Now,
sounds complicated.
It's insane, right? God bless Sonar, who loved the book anyway, which is great. But
there's a mirror that shares all 3 timelines or something like that?
No, The Mirror Thief is really, the title pertains more to the Venice, Italy 1592 thing, part of it, which is because that was the invention of the mirror, which we forget was revolutionary.
Yeah,
and insanely. It turned everything on its head. Venice was turned upside down, and people had breakdowns. I mean, they were devastated. You could be anything you wanted before the mirror. You could be young, you could be beautiful, but the mirror told the truth. What?
When you mean like people saw
Totally,
themselves?
absolutely.
Oh, interesting.
We have a vain cardinal in our story who commissions the perfect mirror, made by the perfect silverer, to hang in his portrait of other paintings, and faints and accuses the silverer of theft because he stole his beauty. If you think about it, that makes sense, because all the other portraits flattered him. And how else would he know which was the truth?
Right.
I mean, it's an extraordinary time. And then the mirror represents a kind of portal to an alternate reality. The film, the series, The Mirror Thief, is largely about people who feel that the other side of some very thin membrane of reality, there exists a truth that's being hidden from us.
Well, do you watch a lot of TV?
Not as much as most people, but I am watching quite a lot at the moment.
What are you watching?
I've just finished. I'm late to a lot of things. I was late to Westworld.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was fantastic.
That's not that late.
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, great show.
I thought it was fantastic. Really, really. I was obsessed with Bloodline, although I think it ran aground in the third season. I thought it was way stretched out.
Yeah. Those first two though
Weren't they great?
so good. Oh my god.
But I think what's exciting about television is it's really brought back the art of patience, or the art of attentiveness. It's extraordinary. I mean, we've done the Bible to our series, and it's 8 hours, and now the more television I look at, I go, no, it's probably 10. Because I realise that if there's a charge going on, you can linger, you can take your time. As long as there's a charge, like an electrical charge. Bloodline was very good at that. Mm-hmm. At the end of an episode, you go, "What actually happened?" You do the Warren Beatty question, "What happened?" You know. Right. but in fact, you go, "No, whatever happened, it was riveting because I'm so in love with these characters." Yeah. So I think television's done that. Television's doing what films used to do, freely, you know. So it's very exciting. Really is, yeah.
Do you have any stars attached to that, or actors attached?
No, to The Mirror Thief.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know there's one of the best parts. I know I'll
Gerard
be going,
Depardieu. Let's get him back.
I'll be going to Gary Oldman for. There's an amazing part.
Yeah?
It's an incredible part. It's the best part, actually. It's a charismatic, legendary gambler who has powers, who's dying. It's an extraordinary part. Anyway, but I'm
Gary
sure.
Oldman.
Yes, no,
I love him very much.
He's terrific. He's unique.
Gary Oldman?
Yes.
What are unique how?
Unique in talent, but also in persona. Really, it's. And the other thing is he's actually a very. I say that he laughs when I say this, but he's a very sexy, attractive leading man when he's not playing a villain or whatever. I mean, even in the bit we did, it's not a great example in The Space Between Us, but he's playing a kind of Richard Branson, Elon Musk type character, and very expansive and entertaining actually. And he's kind of cool. I because I know him, would love to see him do more comedy because he's insanely funny. When he wants to be, you know.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see him do more.
But he's just such.
Should host Saturday Night Live sometime.
He absolutely, definitely should. Yeah. I mean, look what happened when Mick Jagger hosted. It was like, I don't know. You're right. You're absolutely right. Simon Pegg should host Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah, he'd be great. He might have already.
No, he hasn't.
He hasn't really.
No,
that's
crazy.
Insane. That's weird. Why
I know. That's talent.
You did The Mighty, which is a fantastic movie.
Thank you.
With Sharon Stone.
Yes.
Eldon Henson.
Yes.
Kieran Culkin. I know Eldon. He's on a show with my girlfriend.
Oh.
Called Daredevil on
great.
Netflix. How was Sharon Stone? Because was that your first American?
Yes, it was.
Movie? Okay.
It was. I was very worried about doing an American film. I didn't feel qualified, and that was it. I got over the hurdle with that movie. Sharon was great. She believed in the movie a lot, committed to it. And
that was before Casino, right?
I think it was just after.
Just after, okay.
Yeah.
Because that was like her she won a Golden Globe for Casino and stuff,
right.
and people were taking her a little more seriously at that time.
Yeah,
and I thought she was doing great performances.
Yeah, she was great.
You know,
Really good.
was Kieran was he underage at that point? Did he have to deal with parents and
Kieran's really, yeah, God, Kieran, I loved Kieran. I
great
felt
actor,
very
too.
protective of him because his parents were splitting up, and you could see that there was this kind of underlying, honestly, for want of a better word, depression going on in him. Not that I would ever say that to him at the time, but I felt it, and I felt it my job to just... I remember my assistant saying to me, "You really like Kieran, don't you?" And I said, "It's my job to like him, but fortunately, yes, I really like him." I felt very protective of him, and I just wanted to make the experience as enjoyable for him as possible. And he, for years and years, said about that film that I was the first person who treated him like an actor as opposed to just a child star, or, you know. That I gave him, and I did the same thing very much with Miley Cyrus on the Disney movie, where you really need to, they'll take delight in really feeling like you're talking to them as a proper actor, and actor's terminology and actor's language. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did that knowing how well Kieran would take to it, and he did. He just was fantastic.
How was making Hannah Montana with Miley? I mean, she was a teenager then, right? It was
She was 15.
Yeah, the height of Hannah Montana fame, I guess.
You know, that was crazy. I got a call from my agent saying, "Don't laugh. What would you feel about..." Disney want to know what you would feel about directing Hannah Montana, and I said I would laugh if I knew what you were talking about. So I didn't even know anything about it at all. And that's the way I went about it. Now, at the time, it was actually a good decision. She was very popular, and the film, by the way, is great. But I think it's been a bit of a blot on my landscape, as it were, because of Miley's image after that, or whatever. I mean, Miley's in a really, really good place now.
Yeah.
And I think, again, if you ever see that movie and you have kids or no kids, and they're kind of 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever you play, they love the movie. But my experience on it was great. Miley was great. You know, they said, "We need you to turn Miley into a film star." You know, and there was a lot of pulling her out of the Lucille Ball syndrome that she was in sitcom land. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what it was. But when it finally clicked with her, which it did, I say finally, it actually happened rather early on. She completely understood it, and was lovely, really nice.
Did you have to watch like a bunch of the episodes and stuff to kind of get?
I watched all I needed to watch.
Yeah.
To be honest.
What's your bracelet thing?
Oh, it looks like it's a hospital thing. It's because it was to see my middle son play polo to get in and out of the stadium.
And that was today, right?
Today.
You have 3 sons?
Yes, 22, 12, and 11.
22, 12, and 11.
Yes.
Wow. How do you like being a dad?
Very much.
Are you a good dad? Would they say so?
I think I'm good insofar as I have my own relationship with each of them that's protected.
Yeah.
You know.
Did they want to meet Miley Cyrus back
Of course,
10 years ago or whatever?
Yeah, particularly because that was Reggie in particular at the time, because he would have been like 13 or something. Yeah.
I bet that was a big deal in the
12
house.
he was. Yeah, big deal. Yeah, big deal.
Okay. And you worked with in the mighty James Gandolfini, the great James Gandolfini.
Fantastic.
Why are these people leaving us too soon?
I know.
It's terrible.
He was very intense,
Yeah.
which I loved.
Yeah.
Because when someone says to me, "Oh, you know, James Gandolfini's in a really weird mood this morning, and you know, whatever, just be aware it's going to be very intense," I go, "Are you kidding? Do you understand what music that is to my ears? That someone's taking the job seriously? You're playing with emotions. You're juggling emotions. If you have to go into a really strange place for 4 days before you shoot a scene that's difficult, so be it. It doesn't matter." I loved him because he was intense, and he turned up with a lot of internal work having been done. So you had on the one hand, you know, Kieran Culkin, for whom sometimes I would have to show him. I mean, he would say, "Show me," Kieran. And I used to say, Kieran, I'm not supposed to do I'm not supposed to show you. It only happened once or twice. He went, no, show me. And then on the other hand, you've got this very inside-out way of working. Do you know what I mean? With and by the way, that's only partial Kieran. Kieran's a fabulous actor, but I'm just saying he was 14. He used to say, show me.
Yeah.
James Gandolfini was very intense, and I loved it. When actors come on with their work having been done, and there's this charge, this energy, this intensity going on, I couldn't be more excited. And I know how to handle it because I have that vocabulary. I'm blessed with all those lives as an actor and the theatre, and do you know what I mean? It's not like I can't deal with it, you know.
Well, there's an actor, a British actor I love, that I would like you to work with sometime.
Oh, yes?
His name is Mark Rylance.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah. He's the best, right? He's
Isn't
like
he?
one of the best.
Yeah.
Do you know him at all?
I don't know him, no.
He's awesome. So Hector in the Search for Happiness, you said you went around the world 1.5 times.
Yeah.
Last year I traveled to all 7 continents.
Oh, really?
So I watched this movie and I felt even more connected to it than I probably would have a year earlier. How long did that take to shoot, traveling around the world 1.5 times?
The actual shoot days was ridiculously small, 37 days.
That's good.
Again, John Albana is doing second unit for me, but, you know, not like as many as Space Between Us, but helping. It took a long time because it was like making 3 or even 4 movies. We shot for 14 days in Vancouver. Then we did 2 days shoot in London, which required a prep. Then we did quite a few days in South Africa. So you go into a new prep. It's like you're gearing up to make another film. Then you go to Shanghai, you're making another film.
Thing.
And then you go to Tibet and you get thrown out.
Oh.
Yes.
Why'd you get thrown out?
We never got to film the 2 days or the 3 days we were supposed to do in Tibet because there were riots going on.
Oh, jeez.
At a monastery nearby, and I think they were worried about people being aware of it, witnessing it, whatever, and they argued that we didn't have the right permits. So we were asked to leave. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Do you have when you hear stuff like that? Do you go, okay? Well, Plan B is we'll get the shot in this place instead, or something.
I had to really scramble.
Yeah.
I mean, you would not believe the sequence where he goes to Tibet is made up of Vancouver, like interior train that happened to be in Vancouver, Bavaria, Austria, Nepal.
Wow.
Yeah. Those mountaintops are not. When he's right at the top, and then the POVs from his binoculars, of course, are clean POVs in the real Nepal, but. No, it was a real scramble to recreate that we missed by being thrown out of Tibet.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was difficult.
Jeez. Well, do you travel a lot besides work?
Yeah, we have a house that we're hanging on to and trying not to sell in Italy, and I'll be there next month. Oh. Italy's kind of my favorite place.
I was going to ask you about Italy. You have honorary citizenship
of a town in Italy.
A town in Tuscany.
It's true. I was made honorary citizen. I was told about it, and I was told to be in the piazza at a certain time, and I walked into the piazza, and there were trumpeters in period costume and standard bearers in period costume, and I said to the mayor, "What's going on today? Why are they all dressed like this?" And he just said, "It's for you. It's the ceremony to make." No, it wasn't a surprise. I had been told I was going to be made, but I thought it was just going to be sign this piece of paper and take a picture.
There's a whole thing.
But there was a whole thing. It was incredibly touching and very, very flattering. And I am going there next month, and I will be screening an Italian dub of The Space Between Us.
Oh.
In the piazza outside, I think, because I love to give back. I just have to do these things to repay their kindness, you know.
So why? And they did that for you because you're there a lot?
Yeah, and I really, when we bought the house in Italy, I spoke no Italian whatsoever, and I love languages, and I decided to learn Italian, which I did obsessively, and I decided to integrate, which I did. Didn't want to be touristy. And the village where the house's population is like 33 people, and they loved that I learnt the language, and and my wife and I would cook for the entire village on our terrace, which was daunting to cook for Italians. But then with Hannah Montana the movie,
Did you cook
I wish we had done it. But we with Hannah Montana the movie, I did a premiere in a cinema in Iola, which is nearby, and that was a massive deal. Disney was so good about it. They sent 2 guys up from Rome with a print, as it was in those days, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. So it was this big event. So I think they were just so pleased that and being a film director is a big deal in Italy, bigger than anywhere. I don't know what it is. They think it's a big deal. So because I'd done that kind of thing and made those gestures, that they asked me would I be an honorary citizen. And it's honestly, of my resume, if you like, it's kind of the thing I'm most proud of, because it says I'm a normal person who can get on with anyone and learn a language. I just as we say in Britain, it made me very chuffed. Yes.
Do you get to vote?
No, not at all, and I don't get to pay taxes. Thank God.
Oh, there you go.
That was my first question. Do I have to pay taxes?
There you go. You're how long you been married?
This time round, this is my second marriage, and it's 15 years.
15. Okay, so the oldest son is from the
correct.
first
Yes,
marriage.
absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And then the next 2 are from this current marriage.
Yes. Yes.
Where's the 22-year-old? College?
He's just finished at Manchester University.
Oh,
He's more British than the other 2, because he was brought up mostly in London, with his mother, was out here all the time. We're all dual nationality. We all have 2 passports. Me and my 3 sons. My wife doesn't. So it's weird, because she's the American mother of 2 British boys. We'd like to correct that. We'd like her to have a British passport as well.
How do you do that?
She'll have to spend some time there.
Okay. Okay. How'd you meet your current wife?
She was John Cusack's assistant on Serendipity.
Perfect.
It was serendipitous.
Oh, that's so romantic.
And honestly, it's a film I wasn't going to do. It's
wow.
It's crazy.
Good thing you did.
Yeah, no, crazy, isn't it? I really wasn't going to do it.
Good thing you did. Well, you mentioned you turned down movies.
I turned down an inordinate amount of movies,
ones?
especially in my early days, because I was completely deluded. I was. I just didn't understand. I look back and think, God, you idiot. Big movies, some of them.
Yeah. You want to name any?
Well, I'll tell you one that was sent to me, and I turned it down, and I think I was right. I was sent Forrest Gump, and I said, this has to be directed by an American, preferably someone who is either a Vietnam generation American or close to that. That's what I said.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would ever have made that film as well as Robert Zemeckis. I mean, it was daunting to me.
Yeah.
And by the way, it wasn't, here's an offer, start tomorrow. It's like everything. Will you attach yourself to this as director? We'll develop the next draft, then you can direct it. And it would have got made, it would have been a lot of work. I was offered Chocolat. I mean, I don't want to go into too many of them because it's unfair to the people who eventually made them, I suppose. But a lot of them, yeah.
Is your wife still John Cusack's assistant?
No, she works in costume occasionally when she can. She was working recently on Ray Donovan's show and stuff like that.
Oh, great show.
Yeah.
That's another great show.
Isn't it? Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, have you ever thought of just jumping in? I see film directors sometimes, I assume for practice or whatever, just to jump in, do an episode of this, an episode of that, whatever.
The only problem with it is that because I don't get out much and people don't really know me, which is why I'm here today, I need to get out more.
Thank you.
No, but it's true. I don't have a public persona, and people, you've no idea the amount of people who go, would he really? Would he direct this? Would he? No, he wouldn't direct. It's like Michael Sheen said to me once on a plane a couple of years ago, would you ever come in and direct an episode of Masters of Sex? I said, Michael, why the ever? What's with that? It's a brilliant show. You're brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't have to, it's not that I don't have to do much, but those shows, it's so well written and so well acted, you turn up and kind of honour it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to know when to leave well alone, especially with people like Michael.
Yeah.
So I've always been faced with that, because I've never officially directed in television. So people go, oh, so he doesn't do television. So The Mirror Thief will get me past that hurdle.
And,
But yes, in the answer to your question, of course I would direct episodes of anything. Yes, of course.
Who's the showrunner of the Mirror Thief? Do you have one yet?
Don't know yet. We are for the moment. It's myself and John Albanus, who's been with me forever, and Tinker Lindsay, my co-writer. We would be the 3 exec producers, and well, stage by stage, we're just in the writing.
Can't wait to see it.
It's an amazing series. When and if it happens, yes.
What about the Paladin? An upcoming.
Gone a little slow.
Okay.
That was going to be.
It's a World War II.
Really, I think we may have too many Churchills, because Gary Oldman's got a Churchill coming up.
Oh, it's a Churchill. I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, there's another Brian. There's another Churchill. Brian, what's his name?
Brian Cox.
Brian Cox
Yeah,
is Churchill.
yeah. And then there's the Churchill as played in The Crown, and then Gary's got what I suspect will be a very, very good Churchill coming up in a film that's going to be the Oscar contender this year.
So Churchill's hot right now. He's red hot.
I mean, what makes me sad is that I was talking with Tony Hopkins about playing Churchill.
Oh,
and,
sure.
And we were getting excited about it. I love him. That's another relationship where I just hope I can work with him at some point again, because we got on really well.
Do some Westworld.
Of course.
Do some Westworld.
But he's dead, or is
Spoiler.
he?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Nothing is what it seems.
He'll come back or something. Do some Westworld anyway. Even if he's not on it, do some Westworld. That'd be great. Space Between. So all right. So Space Between Us was a sci-fi movie.
I have to go soon.
Okay. Yeah.
20 minutes.
Almost done.
All right, buddy.
Thank you so much for
Not at
your
all.
time.
Not at all.
So a sci-fi movie, was that a little daunting doing something like a sci-fi, because that was kind of out of your?
No, it's weird. I relish it. It's directing is directing to me. It's not that I hadn't done it before, because I'd done samples of that. I actually love CG. I love it, and I understand it because, having been a photographer, when people ask about CG and they go, "Oh, how do you learn CG?" and my advice is usually, just learn how to really run around Photoshop, because it's all about layers, it's all about elements, it's all about composites, it's all about, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then in 3D and making what they call digital assets. So let's make the plane digitally, let's make the rocket digitally, so we have it from any angle, all those things. But I think so I've always understood it, and yet it's amazing how I've used it and no one's noticed, and I go, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah.
So I I felt very at home with the scale of that movie. That was a big movie. That's big stuff, and the spaceships and the landing on Mars. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I like that it's a love story between an Earthling and a Martian.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
Well, Britt Robertson's really great in it. She's on a show, I don't know if you checked it out yet, called Girl Boss on Netflix.
Yeah.
My girl I know developed that show, Kay Cannon. She's been a guest here.
Oh, Kay Cannon.
Yeah.
Ha!
You know Kay?
It's so weird. Kay was my mother's name. David Moritz was editor on that show for a while and said, you have to meet Kay Cannon.
Yeah, she's great.
About going in and directing some of Girl Boss or whatever. Yeah. I said, yeah, so let's ask Kay Cannon.
Okay.
Kay should know that I'd be very, very happy to do that, because I actually love Britt. She's great.
Yeah. Yeah,
there you go.
Kay's great.
Do you think a job has come out of this interview?
I'm
Is Kay listening? Why don't you nudge Kay? I mean it. Do you know her well?
She was my improv coach.
Oh, for God's sake!
So
I'm being shameless here. Tell her.
Okay.
I'm a fan.
I will, absolutely.
Tell her I'd like to sit with her. No, but she's pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, Kay's awesome.
I've done some research on her.
Kay's very awesome.
Tell her, please.
Okay. Oh, and you directed because of Hannah Montana, the Taylor Swift video for. Right? Didn't you do that?
No.
Oh, you're credited as doing that?
I'm credited as directing the Miley Cyrus video of The Climb. Is that what you're thinking?
Nope. Did you do that?
No.
Oh.
They use clips from the film.
No, there's a Taylor Swift song called Crazier that Miley Cyrus is in, and clips of Hannah Montana's in it.
Yeah,
maybe that's why.
I didn't direct the video. We chose the song Crazier for...
I get it.
Because she was in the movie, Taylor Swift. She plays a small part.
Oh, she does? Okay.
Yeah, in Hannah Montana.
Oh, how'd that come about?
We needed someone to be finishing up before Billy Ray Cyrus goes on, and we needed a song and a singer
So she played herself.
in this event, which was like a kind of barn dancey thing,
Gotcha,
like a go
gotcha.
down, throw down, whatever. And they said, "Oh, we've got to have Taylor Swift." I said, "Fine," and I met her, and she was 18 at the time.
Jeez.
But you could just tell.
Yeah.
You could just tell it was going to be huge. She was fantastic.
Legendary. Well, now I get why you're credited, because clips of the movie are
Correct.
in that makes sense. Okay.
Correct.
That's Richard Gere. I love Richard Gere. He's great, right?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Here's what's great about Richard. He's
Yeah.
just very kind. You
Yeah.
know, the whole Buddhist...
Buddhist. There's got to be.
Yeah, but there are a lot of Buddhists who don't look like they practice. I would literally... Here's what's great about Richard is there's a lot of pressure making a film.
Yeah, right.
People lose it here and there, and it gets too stressful. I would literally see Richard hit the crossroads. He'd hit the fork in the road, down which most of us would go left. Wrong. You see this awareness kick in with Richard, and this check that he does on himself and take the better road. There's something about Richard where the Buddhism, you see it in action, and it's very subtle. It's but it's very powerful for me, because I just think he's a gentleman and he's just kind.
He's so good. And he's been doing he's been churning out some awesome
I know, it's fantastic, isn't it?
performances.
No, he's lovely.
lately. I love Bobby Cannavale.
Oh God, I love Bobby.
He's so great, and he's really blown up the last few years.
He's brilliant.
Boardwalk Empire. You see him on Boardwalk
He's
Empire?
brilliant. He's brilliant. He's brilliant.
He's awesome. Susan Sarandon, love her. Did you see Feud? You gotta watch Feud if you haven't
I
seen
have watched Feud. It's superb.
Stanley Tucci. I love Stanley Tucci.
Stanley's great.
I love Richard Jenkins. You're working with all these great people.
I know.
Did you get to dance with Jennifer Lopez at all? Just to say you did.
There is a photograph on the internet of me holding her as if dancing with her, but I'm describing how she should hold Richard Gere, and it's kind of nice. Yeah,
Oh, that's nice. I
But
love
it's only a photo.
I did extra work in one of her movies, Made in Manhattan.
Oh my God!
Did extra work.
Made in Manhattan.
Extra work. Kate Beckinsale.
Yes.
Love her.
Persuaded her to be English.
Oh yeah.
English
what do you mean?
accent. Persuaded her to do the British accent.
She didn't want to do it.
It was written as an American part,
Okay.
but because I like to celebrate people, I like to play close to home, as it were. I thought her charm would be better as a British girl.
Well, look.
She's gorgeous in that film.
Oh, she's gorgeous in pretty much every film.
Yes, she is.
I'd say. Molly Shannon. I love Molly Shannon.
I'm going to tell you. Do you want to hear a story about
Yes,
Molly Shannon?
please. She's a genius.
We're filming at JFK Airport. It's the scene where they're both getting in the taxi, and I go to gesture to describe something to Molly and Kate Beckinsale, and my hand just brushes Molly Shannon's boob by mistake.
Right.
And I, the Brit in me is kind of, mortified, and I go, I'm so sorry. And I carry on talking to the crew and the cast, and Molly goes, he touched my breast. And I go, Molly, it was a mistake. She goes, the director touched my breast. She says, I go, Molly, I'm so sorry. And then she goes, that's how he directs. He touches your breast. And then she grabbed my crotch and said, direct me more. She said. I've never seen a crew laugh so much. Kate Beckinsale, we were crying laughing for 20 minutes.
She's the greatest.
I love Molly. She's nuts.
You should do Divorce. She's on that show Divorce.
Well, why aren't I directing
Come
Molly
on.
Shannon? How
Come
can I
on.
do that?
If you get any work out of this, I would like 10%. Just can you promise me?
You've actually made me realize I need to... Here's what I need to
You
do.
got ready to take notes? What's in the notebook there?
Oh, everything. I always write stuff down.
It's very squiggly.
Molly Shannon.
Molly Shannon.
K
Cannon.
Cannon. Well, that's your job. You're
Tell-
gonna tell Kay.
Tell Warren Beatty to come on my podcast. I'd like to speak with him
Wow.
about the Oscars.
Wow.
You had a young Josh Hartnett in Town and Country.
Yes, I did.
Fresh-faced. You know what I noticed? You work a lot with a couple guys, British guys. You use over and over again. Are they?
Ian McNeice.
Ian McNeice is one of them.
Fantastic.
And are these guys close friends of yours? Or you just,
Peter Gunn.
Peter Gunn is the other one.
You know, If I had continued just making films in Britain, I would have done what I do. I mean, there's only the comparison here is only that Orson Welles had a kind of rep company that he used again and again in movies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there isn't really any comparison. But I would have carried on using the same actors in many different roles, because once I like someone and they understand how I work, it's just too good. It's just too good to do it only once.
It's like that shorthand you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's just too good to do once.
I'll save some time. Harry Dean Stanton, Gina Rowlands.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? You're making me feel like I have actually had quite a life.
Come on, man.
I know, I should be grateful, shouldn't I?
I'm so jealous.
It is actually an incredible list.
It's an incredible list. I mean, Stellan Skarsgård, Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Awesome.
Christopher Plummer. His speech,
Richard Griffiths.
which was take 2 in the university lecture about happiness.
Yeah.
Kind of awesome.
Yeah.
It's nice when Tinker and I, when we wrote that, when you've given your best words to the best actor in the world. You know, I mean, Simon has great words as well, of course, but to give it to someone like Christopher Plummer about we should concern ourselves more with the pursuit of happiness, less with the pursuit of happiness and more with the happiness of pursuit. That whole thinking, that philosophy that we adopted for that movie, encapsulated by Christopher, it just solidifies it. Do you know what I mean? He's so good.
He's so good. Did you see The Beginners? He's great in The Beginners.
Fantastic.
There was a movie that was out like a year or two ago. He plays like a Nazi that's like retired old Nazi. Did you see that one?
Well, there's a new one where he's not a Nazi, but it's a World War I German. It's about to come out.
Oh, maybe that's
Look for it.
Oh, it's it's another one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, look, you've done a lot,
Well, thank you.
and good for you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
That's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
I'm a total stranger. I know you looked me up.
I did look you up, but you know, I just got a sense, I got a vibe that you knew what you were doing, and clearly you do, and thank you for researching me, for God's sake. It's nice when people, when you have reference points, because, it's like you'll open people up more.
Yeah.
You'll get them to be more,
And I enjoy it too,
Yeah,
I'm like,
clearly.
oh, great. I mean, some of those movies I already saw, but I was like, oh, I'll go rewatch some of these movies. I have a good time doing it,
No, good. Well, you must get the Blu-ray of Funny
Bones.
Bones when it comes out.
And give me a shout out on it. Just be like, hey, EJ. Hey, how's it going?
Of course. Of course.
Would you like? I know you're not too active on social media, but I was checking out your Twitter before, and you're kind of there once in a while. Do you want to plug any of that stuff? You want to plug your Twitter or?
Definitely not Facebook. I keep Facebook to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, fine. Yeah, I'm. There's no disguising me on Twitter.
Yep.
What am I? Just Peter Chelsom, I think.
I believe so.
You can find me very easily,
And your website, peterchelsom.net.
Yeah, the one that I finally grew up and got a website, peterchelsom.net. I'm kind of pleased with that. My
Looks nice.
lovely assistant Charlie, she was a lot to do with getting that together.
There's some of your photographs on it too, right? Is that your
because
photographs?
not
those are really good.
Not necessarily the right one. I've always taken stills all my life. It's part of my passion,
Jeff Bridges too. You know
yes,
that?
yes, of course.
Um,
I know the camera.
Well, hey man, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Best of luck with your show. I can't wait to see it.
Yes, let's hope.
And I'll write to Kay. And
do
and
I mean
tell
it?
her.
I mean it because I
promise
really
will.
respect what she's doing, and I've heard great things about it.
I promise I will.
This has been a pleasure, buddy.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir.
My great
And
pleasure, truly.
Scene.
Yes.
There you go, folks. That was my talk with the great Peter Chelsom. Thank you so much, Peter, for coming on, talking with me. I really had a great time. What's strange about this is hours after I talked with Peter, I was online for the usual reasons, nonsense, and I saw that the show Girl Boss had been canceled. The show that Peter and I were talking about with Kay Cannon's show, which kind of sunk my heart, I have to say. It's a really good show, and I was excited about having some people associated with the show on to talk about it. So I'm bummed out that it got canceled. I'll still write to Kay and tell her that Peter is a great admirer and maybe would like to work together sometime. But I was sad to read that. Okay. Anyhows, I'll give Girl Boss a plug. It's still, the season 1 is still on Netflix. I assume it'll be on there forever. So go check it out. And go write Kay Cannon on Twitter and tell her that you wish there was a season 2. All right. So thank you very much, Peter, for coming on. Greatly appreciate it once again. And finally, those plugs again from the beginning are Twitter, at EJ Scott and at EJ Podcast, Instagram, EJ Scott 1106. Although I just started podcast Instagram, which has only one picture on it so far, and that is at Scratch the Surface. I think it's Scratch the Surface podcast, I believe. Oh shit! You know what? If you type in Scratch the Surface, you should find it. Podcast. I have to double check what my whatever it's called name is. Okay, and then the website is ejscott.com, crowdrise.com/7on7 for the charities, Running Blind documentary on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon. And you can now subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, and you can check it out on iHeartRadio, and I've started listing some of them on YouTube. So if for some reason YouTube is a better fit for you, okay, there you have it. And that's about it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.